WESWES, y'all.
Yeah, so I don't go into that deep level of research the case.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. See how it goes.
Why should I know you from? Should I?
Up to you.
No, good. Well, Flavell, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Kia ora. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here, man. Because are you related to Troy?
I think I'm related to Troy. You know, when you're Maori and your last name's Flavell, you seem to be related to every Flavell in this country. So yeah, definitely related to him, I think.
I'd love to hear what that guy's doing now. I used to like that guy when he played for the Blues.
Awesome, man. You know, everywhere I go, man, it's like, are you related to Troy? Are you related to Troy? And I'm like, and I say, oh yeah, he's my brother. Oh yeah, he's my cousin. I was like, yep. So, you know, I went to the doctors actually last week and they told me, are you related to Troy? I was a massive fan of his. I was like, thank you for letting me know that. Appreciate it. Yeah.
So, it's funny how I knew hooked up with you because you liked something we posted on our Instagram page. I forgot what it was, but because you know when everyone does something and you see who they are. I looked you up, and it said you were working for council. You elected as representative for Henderson Massey.
Yeah. So I was first elected back in 2013, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So this it's my third term. So every term is 3 years. So it's my third term currently. And so yeah, Henderson Massey. So the area that looks like is like, if you know where Waikumete, where that is, just in Sunnyvale and Kelston, all the way out to Westgate. So everything in between is the area that I look after. I'm elected to support. So yeah, it's been 9 years.
9 years.
9 years. Yeah.
And how's it been? Like how's it been? How's it been first?
It's been really, really interesting. So when I first got elected, before me, there were no Maori, there were no Pacifica, and there was no one the underage is 45 years old. And I was thinking, that doesn't reflect what our community here in West Auckland look like. And it's those people that have been given money and resources to determine what's best for our community. Our community's young, our community's brown, our community's diverse. So why don't we have anyone that actually looks like our community? So I decided to put my name, hand up and say, yeah, I'll run for the council. And I got in my first time, 2013. So yeah.
So what did it look like at that time? You mentioned, I know you mentioned there was enough brown people in the council at that time. Because when did we go to Super City?
2010.
2010. You were 2013.
So I'm the class of 2013, and it was old and it was white, and it was people who are very wealthy. So it used to be like, if you had money, you'd have the time to be on council, you have the money to resource your campaigns because they're quite expensive. So I decided to flip the script. I said, you know what, actually our people in our community want to see someone that sort of looks like them, that sort of reflects their liberal views. So someone who for me, I'm very progressive in how I think and how I act. And yeah, so the community trusts me, and I run under the Labour Party.
Yeah.
And so that's also supported. They've also supported me for these campaigns.
Mm. Yeah, the party thing.
Yep.
When you run for these elected council roles,
Yep.
Do people have to be aligned to a certain party, like National Labour?
You know what? No, you don't. Not at all. So, for example, I have a lot of supporters. So I always run as a Labour candidate, but I have a lot of supporters who aren't Labour members or don't necessarily vote for Labour in the national elections, but actually support me as a person. So I've made a lot of progress in trying to reach out to our Māori community here. And I'm not Pacifica, but actually I think of my work alongside the Samoan community here, the Niuean community here, and that's been really important to me because we've got no Pacifica representatives on the Henderson Massey local board. So I feel like I'm obligated to support our Pacifica communities here.
Mm. Yeah, because like when I think of you joining the council, and you said it was like a boys a white person's club,
Absolutely.
What was the incentive? Was there incentives for other people like Pacifica or Maori to go into council at that time? Like, was there a change? Was there like the new? How the new always overcomes the old.
Yeah.
So the new generation was us.
Well, you know what? before I decided to stand, I've seen so many great Māori and so many great Pasifika candidates stand but not get elected. And so that's not stopping our people from standing, but they were simply not getting elected. And so I recognise that to get elected, you actually need to do the groundwork because, first of all, it's the voting's different. So the voting papers, they get sent back to your house, right? They get sent to your house.
It's by mail now.
Absolutely, mail. I mean, who checks their mailbox these days? So you open up the envelope, you've got to tick the names, and you've got to put it in another envelope, and you've got to send it off to your local mailbox. I don't even know where my local mailbox is, or to in the library or things like that. But actually, you know what? So we've got a very low voting turnout. Like 35% of people vote, and those voters are usually Pākehā, older, and homeowners, and so they don't necessarily link with Māori candidates or Pasifika candidates. So yeah, was really stoked to get in the first time.
Oh, that's interesting, eh? Because it sounds like we are not the type of people to do the mail, or you know what I mean? It's a hassle, right? You get the mail, it's an envelope sitting there, and you probably don't even know what you've got to do. Just sign the paper, sign it all, and then actually go take it, sort of thing. Who's got time for that, sort of thing?
Well, actually, probably the most mail that we get are bills, and some of us are too scared to open those envelopes, and it is a bit of a hassle. And I really pushed about 3 years ago for online voting.
Yeah.
I say that because I'm thinking, like, if we allow, for example, I don't carry much cash around. I usually pay by my bank app on my phone, and why can't we do the same for voting? I mean, it's easier. There were some concerns from people who say, "Oh, but it's not safe. It could be a virus. It could be hacked." I'm like, hang on a minute. We see millions of dollars of transactions on our phone app. We do that. So if we keep those systems safe, I'm sure we could keep the voting system safe as well.
Yeah. So is that gonna come about in the near future, do you think?
I think it was child.
Was it?
Yeah, child. And
how come I didn't know about that?
Not in Auckland. Not in Auckland.
Oh, okay.
Those councils that were willing to trial it, I'm not sure. So that was back in 2016. I don't know where those conversations are had. With the possibility of online voting, you'll actually get more young people to vote, and actually that scares older people who are standing for elections, thinking, "Oh no, younger people, will vote, and they won't necessarily vote for older people." So that sort of idea, like, actually, and I've spoken to a lot of older candidates, actually will scare them.
Yeah, that is interesting, and that's probably why, because they know most of the people that are scared of voting are not going to do the posting, right? So they know it works for them, so they won't scrap it at all.
Absolutely, it keeps to their traditional voting groups.
And I think it might be a generational thing. That generation, the writing letters and putting in the post box, that generation is still around here, so they're putting in the votes. It's easy for them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many kids have written letters before and put a stamp on it and posted it away. So that concept of buying stamps, of writing things, putting in envelopes and sending them away is a very foreign concept to the younger generation.
Yeah, when you jumped into council, because not only you wanted to be get brown faces in there. What was going on at the time? Because I don't think I was living around West at that time. I think I was in Central, but I mean I grew up at West, but I wasn't there at that time. Was there anything around in the out West Auckland that you thought you wanted to change as well? Not only to be a brown president there, but what was going on?
I actually had moved to West Auckland the year before, so 2012, and I started a job at Rutherford College as a high school teacher, teaching Te Reo Māori, and I thought I've always wanted to represent my people. I've always wanted to be a mouthpiece, particularly for vulnerable communities, for communities that struggle, to be a voice for that particular cohort of people, and so. For me, I recognised that local board at the time, didn't have any Māori, didn't have any youth, and so for me, it was really important to not only be there, but every decision that we make at the council level has an opportunity for Māori to be there, to actually offer suggestions or views or opinions, and that was really important. But I think going back to 2012 and 2013. Oh, I mean, just think of some of the issues. I don't know if you've heard about the Kaihautū Māori. That's been a really big kaupapa for 50 years in the Kaihautū community. And I remember going to a meeting there, and so many of the community at that particular time didn't want to see a marae on their peninsula, you know. And I used to hear like the most racist comments, things like, "Oh, a marae will bring gangs."
Really?
That's absolutely rubbish. And I'm so glad that, you know, 9 or 10 years later, that's changed. People now want to see the marae there. That, you know, the opinions and views have changed about things Māori, and I think that's over time, and it will continue to get better. It's still not perfect, but it will continue to get better. And so we're progressing that marae, and it hopefully will start to be built within the next year or two.
You're right about the progression, because maybe over the last 5-6 years, there's been a real push, eh? Even the media. I know the media, you know, they have to pronounce the names properly, places, and names, and even the police. The police now have to pronounce the names properly.
Absolutely, and so they should.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Māori.
But it seems like it's like snap the fingers, it's changed. So it's like, to me, that feels like, oh, they've been told, now they have to do it. But it's been like this trying to change the narrative. I hate that word narrative, but they're trying to change and have more awareness for the culture. You know,
I mean,
indigenous culture.
I mean, it has to be like that, because I mean, the first language of this country was Māori. It was Te Reo Māori. You know, you can't, you know, you won't find Te Reo Māori anywhere else in the world. So it has to be protected. It has to be. We have to be able to participate there. And so I like what the mainstream media have done in terms of using Te Reo Māori pronunciation so much better than say 10 years ago. I really like that. There's training on the use of Māori or tikanga Māori within workplaces. So, I mean, I love this shift. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Aotearoa looks like, say, in the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah. 10, 20 years, do you think? Or less than that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the government at the moment, they've got this goal of 1 million speakers of Te Reo Māori by 2040. So that's 200 years after the signing of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. And so that's a big goal, 1 million speakers. So that's obviously not just Māori, but that's actually non-Māori as well. So that's a really big goal to have. And so I think we're sort of working towards that. But if we need to do better in that space.
Yeah. Especially with the schools, like having Te Reo at schools, like have a subject like you got maths, English, and Te Reo like next to it, like compulsory.
Yeah, compulsory.
Have they got that?
It's not compulsory. Schools can make it compulsory if they want to, so it's up to schools to make it compulsory. But it's you know, the government, the Ministry of Education hasn't said we've got to make it compulsory, but schools have decided to make it compulsory. I'd even go further than that. I'd say that how can we incorporate more Te Reo Māori, say, in your social studies class, in your English class, in your maths class, in your PE class. So it's using Te Reo Māori not just in a Māori way, but in like different areas of life. You know, what are some words or phrases that we could use in PE, like in basketball or rugby, or tennis or things like that. So yeah,
and make it normal, like,
normalize it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
normalize it.
Yeah,
and I think it's important, especially with the new generation coming up, that the schools put it in there, because after all, it's the older generation that are the most racist ones, in this country. Like, once they go, you got the new breed coming up with that don't even live around that environment of knowing what race is where it is, and just used to talking,
Absolutely. I mean, kids aren't born racist. No, it's an attitude that you learn, and unfortunately, you learn it from particular people in our community and our society. Our adults, and so kids are definitely not born like that, and it's unfortunate. Also, the media also play a role in that in terms of showcasing stereotypes. That's really important, to think that Māori like this, Māori and Pacifica are like this. Actually, no, we actually need to challenge those stereotypes and actually think for ourselves.
Yeah, so it's interesting how you say it's kind of cool to see what's going to happen in the future, what it looks like after all this, the next generation, like we said. Like, what does it look like? What does it look like, do you think? Yeah,
that's cool. So some of the things we're currently seeing at the moment, so I don't know if you've been on the train much, but you can hear Te Reo Māori in terms of, when you're...
on the radio, when it comes up.
Yeah. So, like, we're about to go to this particular area, or you must have your hop card I forgot exactly in Te Reo Māori what they say. I've only been on a couple of times in the last year. But, that's really important because the Māori language has to be seen and heard in public spaces. And the public transport's the perfect opportunity. But I guess my dream would be, for example, like, I can go to the doctors and I can tell them in Te Reo Māori what's wrong with me. I can able to order my fish and chips, in Te Reo Māori. So it's actually using the language, at an everyday level. And I think that's what that's how you should be learning. That's how a language should be used, rather than just focus on ceremonial purposes like, porphyry and things like that. Using it in an everyday context is the goal, is the dream.
Yeah, especially culture. We were talking in our other podcast, Untitled Clip, with me and my mates, and we were just talking about how the state of race relations in this country now. I mean, there's still like my friend on podcast. He just told a story about how him and his daughter walked into a shop and they were like being profiled, and like they felt like they couldn't afford anything in the shop, and he just felt like that. He bought it anyway, but he just felt dirty, So it's still some things like that still happen, but it's yeah. How do we how do we overcome that?
Yeah, we've got to recognise the bias that we have, and we all have it, right? We've got to recognise that and deal with it or nip it in the butt. Some of us don't even realise that we actually have that bias. So, if I think of the shopkeeper example that you just used, that person has bias, perhaps against Māori or those who are brown, etc. So, there's bias against young people, and I say there's bias against young people because at the moment there's this campaign on 16-year-olds able to vote. They're pushing for make it 16. And a lot of the people that I listen to say, oh no, 16-year-olds, they don't have much, worldly experience, they're not quite up there intellectually and we shouldn't allow them to vote, etc. And that's a particular bias that people have. The 16-year-olds I know are innovative, they're creative, they have their stuff together. And so it's about I think we all need sort of training, but we also need to recognise our own bias that we have and how we deal with it, so that we can sort of get rid of it, because it's definitely not healthy.
With the 16-year-old thing, I think that's a tricky one, because it's the bias of they don't have much life skills. Oh. They might have all the creativity in the world and they might have all the talent, but I think what they're worried about is they don't have enough life skills.
I mean, if you're 16-year-olds, if you work, they have to pay tax. There's a lot of rules that they, as 16-year-olds, they have to do. And adults, they have the same rules. So, I look at other countries that have introduced 16 as the voting age. There haven't been any problems there. And I really support this campaign. I think it's really important to have that youth voice. And I know more sophisticated 16-year-olds than, say, 60-year-olds, believe it or not.
Yeah. It's like I think when I think about the last US elections, how many young people were in the Democrat side? There were like heaps.
That's cool.
And that was good, because it was like a new generation, new voice, and most of the people are that generation, so they know, they got the ear to the ground, they know what's going on. Then they vote this old guy in, like, he probably doesn't have a clue what's going on. He doesn't have a clue because of the
yeah. Interesting. You mentioned the Democrats. I followed the primary race, before they selected who would be the presidential candidate, and I was Team Kamala.
Yeah.
I thought, man,
she was in the forefront, was she?
She dropped out of the race, I think.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out, I think Andrew Yang, Kamala Harris. I was a big fan of those particular two. I thought, okay, Joe.
But even, what's her name, Ayo? But she wasn't old enough, eh?
No.
But she had a strong voice.
I think you've got to be 40. They've actually got an age limit, which is like ridiculous. You've got to be 40 to put your name forward to be the president of the US. And I look back in 2007 when Jacinda was 37 years old. And I thought, cool. She brought youth she'd been in Parliament for a few years before that, but I thought, this is cool. This is a new generation. This is great for women, young women. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you get into much of that, the politics over there in the States?
A little bit, and I say that too because one of the biggest issues at the moment is issues around gun reforms and issues like that. So
today was the tragic
shooting
in Texas
of the primary school kids and their teacher. I last week was watching the news about the incident in Buffalo, which is primarily an African American area. White supremacy and things like that, and that's really interesting. We need, if I look at those examples, there've been 200 plus mass shootings this year, and it's a massive killer for kids that live there, live in the States, and no one is bold enough actually to say, hang on, how many kids do we have to kill in order to make some really strong, sensible gun reform, because it's going to continue, and I just feel aroha for their families.
It's it's really bad what's going on there, and it's tragic, not just those kids but all the other kids in the past, or any shooting over there, and it looks like that's the only country that does that because of their laws. The Second Amendment allows them to have guns, carry guns, but it's weird because that amendment is an amendment. It can be amended, but they won't amend it. Right. No.
And I look at the gun groups there who've got so much political power, who donate money to politicians. So, there's their way of keeping, that's their way of sort of limiting gun reforms and things like that. I remember when I went to Alaska actually, and I went to Walmart. And I couldn't believe it when I just saw a gun stand, and like similar to Kmart here, right? Imagine if you just saw a whole bunch of shotguns and hand pistols and things like that. And I was quite like, wow, this is like, what the heck? I can buy my stationery here, and I can just buy my clothes, and here's the guns. I had dinner with a family, and because I'm really interested in gun laws and things like that, and they went, the man they had dinner with went back to his room, and he brought me his gun pistol, and he put it in my hand because I had never held a gun before, particularly just a shotgun. And he said, I said, oh, what is this for? And it's for protection. Protection from what? From invaders. So in the house, and it's like that mentality. I mean, I don't have that mentality. Guns are simply there to kill. It's a killing machine basically. And so they talked about their rights, their amendment rights, and things like that. And I just thought that's such a foreign concept to me in terms of keeping myself, keeping my family safe. I wouldn't necessarily, have my own gun. And it's a bit of a culture shock for me to see that.
It's if you look into it and you look why they have that Second Amendment. It's back in the days when they had muskets, and it makes sense that time. Like, it was a new country, they just did their government, they pushed away the French, the English. Well, the French helped them, and they made these constitution. So they were saying, okay, so we can't have a government to be corrupt. So if the people are allowed to protect themselves from a corrupt government, so that's why they have that amendment. But over the years, it doesn't change, but the guns change. Now we have automatic weapons, that amendment's still there. So, where does it stop?
And they're causing people to die, and people are being irresponsible with them, and children are dying, and so that's the sad fact. And I would encourage a bit of change in that area as soon as possible.
It's just too much money being made by those gun people. That's when it changes hands, millions and billions of dollars change hands because the guns are there.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's like it's their own fault to me. It sounds bad, but it's like their rules allow it to happen, but they won't change it. So how can they? So to me, I know it's bad. It's always bad when it happens. It's sad. You feel for the kids, but the country's not doing anything about it. So what can we do? We say, oh, another one. Oh, sad. But it's going to happen again. So.
Yep.
It's like, oh, okay. You guys yeah, you guys do it.
Yeah, no, I remember that incident back in 2019 with the Christchurch massacre there as well, and I think at the time after that, Parliament made a quick decision to sort of ban a particular type of gun, and also the opportunity to give your guns in to the police, and I thought that was a really cool move. I think every MP except one, I think it was David, the current leader of the ACT Party, voted against that. But I thought, it was swift action. You're recognising that these, stricter control is needed for some guns, and we don't necessarily need a lot of these guns that people tend to have. So
it was a good campaign. That unfortunately those guns that the shootings last night happened around 7 suburbs around Auckland.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So I'm thinking like, okay, they made their rule. That's good. People give their guns in.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm thinking, okay, these are people that are responsible for guns, giving them in and getting these guns destroyed. But the people that, like criminals and that, they're not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite tragic. I was reading some of the Facebook posts today, particularly around Henderson, and family have just sort of left the home that they had nothing to do with the particular people who did the shoot, attempted, and so they've sort of left that home. Bit of shock for them. I mean, it's always terrible, particularly when it's just down the road from where we live as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that the police they got a lot in their hands right now, even with the ram raids going on. I think, with COVID and things like that, with the COVID experiences of our young people, I'm a big believer in empowering our young people. We all know that term. What sport keeps young people out of court and things like that. And I truly believe that giving kids opportunities to be busy or to be proactive. And any barriers that get in the way of them being proactive. So I think, for example, like I'm a big believer that sports should be free for kids to participate in, because I know fees and things like that can be quite expensive for many families, and that's often a barrier for kids to be able to participate. Man, have you seen the fees for basketball?
No, please tell me.
Oh, you gotta fork out
a mortgage.
That's the one that's expensive. And you know what happens to Steven Adams? Like that's why he's not going to play for the All Blacks.
Yeah.
Because they didn't look after him when he was young. He had to fend for himself.
I like that. You know what? That's principle. That he wouldn't have been able to afford it, right? And a lot of other families can afford it. I grew up playing rep tennis.
Yeah.
And I knew my family couldn't afford it, and so a lot of the times I remember I used to get rides to tournaments as a young person with my parents, mates' parents. I used to borrow equipment because tennis is an expensive sport. Barely was able to pay the fees. But sport was such an important. It still is, but was more important back when I was a young person. So I understand, Steven Adams' stance on that, and I say good on him.
Yeah. So what's expensive about tennis? Is it the coaching that's expensive, or the club?
It's everything. So, for example, playing tennis, you're paying for the rackets. Rackets can, I don't know, from say $200 to $400 for a racket. Fees can be quite expensive. If you're playing competition tennis, it's the tournament fees. It's the traveling to tournaments. Coaching can be $60 an hour minimum. So, and where I grew up up north, traveling costs, the tournaments which are in Auckland, Hamilton, and Wellington.
Yeah, true.
So tennis is a very expensive sport. We definitely weren't rich at all, and but I think that I'd love all kids to be able to play sport and not have those financial barriers.
I started playing tennis a while ago when I started work, because my boss is into it.
Oh yeah,
but he plays squash now. He used to play tennis.
Okay,
it's like a thing, when we play tennis, and then when you're older, you play squash.
It's too hard. Play squash.
You don't want to run around. You play squash. But I prefer tennis. I got into tennis because of him.
Oh yeah,
he would take us to Eden Epsom.
Oh yes,
And,
the Flash there.
and played tennis there. That was his club.
Are you any good or?
Wow, I just started. Plus,
Oh, okay.
in our industry, we got this competition like tennis social competition every year.
Okay.
Every year, and then we always go just to get off work. You know, you want to go.
I'm happy to be your
Free food,
secret
play
weapon.
tennis.
If you need a secret weapon, tennis, I'm happy to sort of join in your team.
But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I haven't played in a while, but I'm not even good. But I enjoyed playing.
That's all right.
Yeah.
It's all about tennis is a sport for any age. You know, that's what I like. It's a sport for life. So, you know, I can feel my knees starting to give way, my back starting to give way, and you know what? That's all good. I'll play when I'm 60, 70.
So did you get graded and stuff like that?
We don't. It's different from squash. You definitely have gradings, but a couple of weeks ago, I won the Kaihautū tennis champs.
Nice.
So for me, I love to play local competitions, but you know, I grew up playing tournaments, Maori nationals, played the Fiji Open a few years ago. So tennis has taken me to really some cool places around Aotearoa and overseas.
Fiji Open. Man,
was awesome.
Who any big names? Any big names go there?
I think the big I think those from predominantly from New Zealand, Australia, and the Pacific Islands play this tournament. Yeah. I was lucky enough to get to the final of the doubles.
Oh, nice.
Doubles final. It was a really weird story. I did not expect to get to the final, and I had booked my tickets, to fly back home
that day.
Because there's no way I'm going to get to the finals. Then I think, oh no, what do I do? My finals on at the same time I fly out. So we organised it to have it really early in the morning of when I left. I lost the final. I had about 3-4 match points, which was, when you have so if you have a match point, one more point, and you win the match, right? And so I had 4 match points. And in sport, we've got this term called choking, right? I'm nearly there I'm nearly at the success, and then suddenly I start to feel this pressure, and I start to get this and lost, eh? So I was quite upset that day, and I remember being upset for months after. So I lost in the final of the French Open. The Fiji Open. Sorry, wrong tournament. Fiji Open. Nothing wrong with the Fiji Open, but the French Open's on TV at the moment. Sorry, I got my wires crossed. number one in the world? There'll be Novak Djokovic.
Oh, okay.
He's still number one in the world. Yeah.
Because I thought it was that Spanish guy.
Nadal?
Nadal, yeah.
Nadal's about third or fourth. Yeah.
Was he ever number one? He was.
He's been number one for many years. He won the Australian Open earlier this year, Nadal. I've watched Nadal play in Melbourne before. I went to the French Open to watch a few years ago. I can't remember if I watched Nadal there, but...
true. Damn, what was that like?
Oh, amazing. Amazing. Paris was awesome. Because it's played on clay. So clay...
that's the brown.
Yeah. So it's brown, it's dusty, and it's got a different bounce, So court surfaces, so Wimbledon's on grass, on real grass, not real mowed grass, and then you've got Aussie Open and the US Open that are played on these beautiful hard court, concrete-based, rubber-based surfaces. So very different.
Sure. So, you just went to watch the French Open?
Went to watch.
Or were you there for holiday? And
I was there at the time. Yeah, that time I took a month off work and I went to Europe. It was about 2017. So, I'd never been to Europe before, and I thought, let's take a month off. So I went to all the things that I always wanted to do. So Anne Frank House and Amsterdam and the Netherlands. I went to Wimbledon. I went to the French Open. I went to Auschwitz, which is a concentration camp in Poland. And then I went to some of the ruins in Greece, in Athens.
All right.
So 4 weeks just, traveling Europe by myself, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Was that the first time traveling out of the country? Or?
No, I've been all around the world, from India, Japan 10 times, most of the Pacific Islands, America a few times, South America, Canada, Asia, Finland, Sweden. I've been about 33 countries, I think.
Oh, wow. So what was the first trip you did?
First trip was when I was 18. I went to Japan.
Oh, yeah.
So
was that like a OE? Was that the start of your OE? Did you do OE?
No, I didn't. I won a scholarship to Japan. So I studied Japanese at high school. And then I went to Hiroshima, Japan, and stayed there for a while. And then I went to university after that, Waikato, and I majored in Japanese.
Right.
So my major is Japanese language. But yeah, I had a love for learning Japanese at high school. Yeah, I loved it so much. And then when I saw that I won a trip to Japan, I was like, oh, this is so cool. So that was my first trip overseas, was going to Japan, and that just freaked me out. But yeah, I've loved it, eh?
See, I think that's why you're passionate about people learning te reo, because you've got out the way to learn another language, Japanese. So if you can do it, there's no excuse for anyone else, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, learning Japanese. I've been learning Samoan as well for the last 5-6 years as well.
You're probably better than me.
Oh, I don't. I have someone who who used to privately tutor me as well. So my work paid for that, which is really cool. Been to Samoa about 3 times. The last time I went to, I decided to volunteer. They had the measles outbreak back in December 2019. Yeah. So I volunteered for a week there with a couple of my friends. We were based at the Whale, the hospital there.
Yeah. Did you get in touch with the what are they called? Helping Hands?
Yeah, I did actually. I did.
With Eka?
I did. Although unfortunately somehow we didn't quite go that way. I had originally planned to work with a youth organisation, and that sort of didn't work. So we worked with one of the local churches there. So our job basically was to help pack the food and then send the food off and then supplies to the families, but also to just listen and talk to families, about some of their losses, just to sit there, and I was talking to so many that lost their kids, and so, and spoke to a solo mother, and a solo mother's, that's not common in Samoa, and losing her only child and things like that. So I think that was really important for me to do that, and to sort of give back. And that was my way of giving back to Samoa, because having studied Samoa for 6 years here, and having awesome Samoan language teachers and my Samoan classmates, that was my way of sort of giving back.
Oh, awesome. That's you're the third person that's come on this podcast talking about being over there at the measles outbreak.
Oh, wow, really?
So we had Barbara Trevor on.
Oh, yes.
She reported on that. She went over there.
Yes.
She was reporting on it.
Yeah.
And just last night, Yeka was here from the Helping Hands.
Yeah.
So they did an amazing job of the charity and giving the care packs.
Absolutely.
To the families and stuff. So.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because that measles outbreak was really bad for the kids over there that weren't vaccinated. And it was like, for me, hearing about it, what do you mean they weren't vaccinated? Shouldn't they be? And that was shocking at first. But then, government had to go around and vaccinate. And then I think it was over a period of 3 months that happened there.
Well, what happened, it was quite sad, was that I think that a lot of the Samoan people were quite scared because there'd been an incident before. I'm not sure when the incident was, when the nurse was given a vaccination. She gave the wrong vaccination to the baby, and the baby died. Right. So I think you had concerns from the community, about that, and I'm sure that was a one-off incident, and so that perhaps scared families to be able to get their their babies vaccinated. But there was a big vaccination drive in Samoa during that time, and I think what I was scared about, particularly with COVID, thinking, oh no, COVID's hitting our shores, and hopefully there can be a drive to vaccinate for COVID there, knowing that what happened with all those babies that died, that hopefully that's not replicated with COVID, and we haven't seen that, so that was good.
Yeah, whereabouts did you stay?
Basically, we stayed in a village in Vailima. So stayed there. Just in a hotel there for about 10 days. I thought when I usually go to Samoa, I usually like to go to Savaii as well. It's
nice over there.
It's beautiful, and the roads are so much better. I tried to drive on, and
it's nice and clean over there.
Nice, and I'm one of those ones. I love getting in the car in Samoa, putting down the windows and just feeling that beautiful island breeze. I like, and just the sun and the breeze in there, and I'm in Samoa. But the ferry was booked all that week that we were there. I was like, damn it, if we could have spent 2 days in Savaii, that would have been awesome. But we couldn't get there, so yeah.
So was that the first time you went there, or?
That was my third time.
Third time.
So I had actually. first time was in 2018, and I went in January 2019, and December I just felt like I needed to go. So I actually asked my two of my mates, "Do you want to come with me and help volunteer?" Yeah, we'll come with you. So they did, and we spent a week volunteering. And it was an awesome. It was an experience that I'm hopeful that we did some good.
Mm. So what made you get into learning the language, Samoan language?
When I was teaching at Rutherford College, something that was new to me moving to West Auckland is that a lot of the Pacifica kids have Māori heritage. A lot of the Māori kids have Pacifica heritage. So. And that was quite new to me, and also because Rutherford College didn't have any Pacifica languages there, so a lot of those Pacifica kids also, they chose Māori because language is compulsory, so they chose Māori as their language of choice in Year 9, and so like I thought, wow, this is really cool. You have these Pacifica kids, mostly Samoan kids, wanting to learn Te Reo Māori, and I thought, man, you know what? Maybe I could learn. I can learn your language if you're learning my language as well. And so, like attending the classes, I had to like change a few things. Like, I thought, oh, this is easy. I speak Japanese, I speak Māori, I speak English. It was not easy at the start. People think it's easy, but it's not. I'll give you a few examples. So, like the U, okay, the U in Māori is ai or u, u. You definitely don't say "u" in Samoan because they would like look at you like, okay, it was so it's the whole different tones and and like you've got the komaliliu, the glottal, we call it the glottal stop, with the like si'i and fa'a and si'i, li'i, ali'i. And then like that's a new concept to me as well because we don't have that in Māori.
Oh, okay.
And so like learning that and the macron, the mafa, the macron, we have that in Māori, but what I've noticed in Samoan when I'm reading Samoan texts is that a lot of the times that mafa, the macron or the komaliliu, they don't have them on the text. So because when Samoans read, they know
automatically.
Automatically, not me. They're not the second language.
If it's two A's without a comma,
I mean that's an easy one.
Yeah.
But there are some places like as a second language, like I don't know where they go, and then so I don't know automatically where they go. And the fa'a is an easy one to do, but other ones are not so easy, and they don't have them in old books anyway. So sometimes I like, should I guess it if there is one or not? So those are the challenges for me for learning the language.
It's cool because like me growing up, like it's always the only similar thing really similar was the numbers.
Yeah. You
guys had tahi, we had tasi, but lua tulufa is like the same until you get to 10. But it's interesting where all that comes from one place. It just separated. Like we're all Polynesians, and that's another thing I keep thinking about. The word Polynesia, is that getting written out of the vocabulary now? Is Pacifica and Maori like separate now? Because I get it when they say Pacifica, it's people from the Pacific Islands, so it includes Melanesians because they're on the island.
Absolutely.
So it's Fiji. They're included, so the Pacifica. But the original Polynesia, that side of it, including New Zealand, Samoa, Tonga, Polynesians, Hawaii, Rarotonga. But then now it's separated again. Now it's, you know what I mean, eh?
Yeah. So I think that's a New Zealand term, Pacifica.
Yeah,
I think there was Professor Damon Salesa, who's the Vice Chancellor at the moment at AUT University. I think he was the one that coined that phrase Pacifica. So it used to be Polynesian. Now, I think there's a new term, Tangata Moana.
Tangata Moana?
Yeah, Tangata Moana.
I haven't heard that one before.
The people of the ocean, Tangata Moana. That's coming in more common now. So
is that including... Is that Polynesians and Melanesians included?
Well, those who come from
which is all of us,
sea,
right?
Yeah.
So except for the white people.
Well, I mean, when we think tangata moana in our minds, we sort of get a understanding of what that could mean. But Pacifica, that's a New Zealand term that they don't use in Australia
and they don't use it in America because America is Polynesian. Or Polynesian.
Yeah, and that's the same for Australia. I was at the Australian Pacific students conference, education conference, and no one was using the term Pacifica. They were using Polynesian. So I guess that Pacifica is such a New Zealand bred word.
I don't know to you, but to me, like I always think outside the box on these things, right? And I think why did that happen? Like this podcast we're on right now, we're under the WESWES network, and our slogan underneath that is a Polynesian perspective, right? It's our perspective on things, anything, for not only Polynesians but everybody. So it's a different sort of way of looking at our people. Like it's included, like New Zealand Indigenous included to Samoans, Tongans, Raotongans, everyone, So, but then it's all separated again with the word Pacifica, and what I have trouble understanding is why you might not think like this, and I just think like it's putting Pacifica people to one side in a corner, a box, to have all the stuff that's our own, but separate from everyone else.
So you think that's sort of not
like that's what it seems like. So I don't know if it's not, to me that's what it seems like. It seems like we're not being compared to the rest of the world. I know it's all about empowerment. We have our culture, but then Pacifica again, it's going to be a different culture because it's a amalgamation of different cultures, different island cultures in one thing, which is Pacifica. So is that going to turn out to be a new thing? Is this going to turn out to be after generations? Are we going to be disconnected from our own islands? You know what I mean?
That's a really interesting conversation. Yeah, I mean, because you don't want to be, you don't want your own ethnicity to be swallowed up by this wider Pacifica grouping, right?
Yeah, but it's not like we don't want it. Is this what's happening? Because if people from Samoa and Tonga, they're going to be there, over generations, they're still going to be Samoa and Tonga, but we're going to look like something different in the future. Pacifica will be looking like something else.
I think that's just a convenient way of, putting, I'm not saying it's a good thing or it's a bad thing, but it's always been, you look at the word Asia.
Yeah.
Asian communities. What is that? I mean,
the Indians are included. India's in Asia.
Yes, yeah. But China, China is very different from Japan.
Yeah. Different from India.
Absolutely. Different from Asia, different from Singapore.
Yeah. So are these terms just coined for
education
purposes? Education purposes.
Yeah. But go back to tangata moana.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never heard that before.
So Māori, tangata whenua, right?
Yeah.
Tangata whenua. And I still think it's really important. I know a lot of people like to also put Māori within that Polynesian framework, but I still think it's very important for us as Māori to be able to sort of keep our identity, because we've got nowhere else to go. I can't go back to another island. This is it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's all right, because it's indigenous from this land. So yeah, you keep your culture. You keep what it is that makes you what you are. Identity.
Yep.
It's what I can't. It's not what I'm feeling like. Pacifica is going to be something else. Going to be sooner or later in generations to come. Yeah. It's going to be separate to Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, or all the other islands.
Well, I mean,
you know what I mean? It'll be because it's mixed with the Western world too. So we got that as well.
So I guess it's up to individual communities to be able to ensure that that they keep a focus on their language, their culture and identity. For Samoan communities here, Niuean communities here, and I still see that. I still, I see, for example, Niue here in West Auckland. Niue is made up of different villages, and so Avasili is the name of a village, for example. They like to have their village gatherings for the Avasili village. So they'll meet, they'll sing songs related to that village. They'll eat there, and I like that. I like that. So they still can. In a broader context, they can be Pacifica, but actually they can also be Niuean, but also they can be, more importantly, their own village, and to celebrate that. So our identity is sort of in different realms.
Yeah. And do you think it'll be complicated? Do you think it'll get complicated?
I'm not complicated by it.
I know, but this whole identity thing, like with Pacifica, I'm not talking about individual identities, like different, like talking about Samoa. I'm just talking about what this Pacifica thing is going to look like, and is it going to be different to the Pacifica and the island people that come up in Australia?
Already is.
And
Already is. I mean, you can see there are stark differences between Pacifica and Australia. I like to think that perhaps the Pacifica people that I've met here in Aotearoa have perhaps a bit of more of a stronger identity of themselves as Pacifica than perhaps, because you see the concentrations of Pacifica communities here in West Auckland and South Auckland, so you're able to see people that look like you, that reflect the same values. Perhaps it may be more difficult in those bigger cities in Australia, or those bigger cities in the States, where they're not fortunate perhaps to live within their own their own communities.
Yeah, so I find that all interesting, just the way things are said and going, and what it might look like in the future. Because I believe like it's going to turn out to be a new culture in the future, like maybe 3 generations from now.
Well, I guess then it's probably really important to really focus on your language and some of the cultural values that each of the Pacifica ethnicities have.
I guess I'm worried about how diluted it will be over generations. Like even with we married other cultures in 3 generations, like where back home it's going to be sort of pure for the longest time. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean,
and there'll be a disconnect somewhere around down the generation line. I don't know where it's going to be, but
I mean, Māori have been doing intermarriage and since the first arrival of Pākehā here in before 1840. So it's probably nothing new for us. And I guess our challenge as Māori is that because in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland here, we've got nearly 200 different cultures. So I think Māori have always been good at like navigating our way through a myriad of different cultures and still being able to hold true to our own identity, but also recognizing that our community is so diverse, but at the same time, knowing who we are and where we come from.
What's the future then when we're looking at New Zealand as a whole? Like, because there's always talk about we're living in the Western world. What is the Western world? How much of New Zealand is on the Western world? How much influence is colonization to people that live here?
I mean,
and what does it? See, these are questions I have in my head. Like, what's going to turn into? Like, I really think we're just in the sort of like a transition period. We don't know where things are going. The technology is in the way as well. Social media. There's all these other factors that come in influence the kids and the direction they go. I mean, culture will always be there, but then I feel like there's a lot of factors now.
I think at the moment we're in a period where we're actually recognizing that an indigenous way of doing things is actually massively beneficial, not just for Māori, but for everyone. So, you think about sort of climate change, for example, a Māori way of looking at how climate affects us is, we've got our own ways of recognizing that, of solutions. I think of the Kauri dieback situation in the Waitakere Ranges, where the local iwi, Te Kawaroamaki, they put a rahui, which is a temporary ban on being able to enter in certain parts of Waitakere. That's a Māori concept, a rahui. Yeah. When someone dies or passes away in the sea or a particular beach area, you have the local iwi, they'll put a rahui. So that's a Māori concept, and I think like reintroducing or reaffirming those values, and that's an indigenous way, that actually will be beneficial not just for Māori but for everyone. So I think we're in that period of recognizing like, what does a New Zealand way look like? And a New Zealand way must have an indigenous point of view to it.
Yeah. And how much of the Western world is mixed into that? Like, I remember now we were talking on the podcast about things like funerals.
Yep.
Like, those Balinese not used to 1 week, 2 week bereavement leaves for someone that passed away in your family.
Yep.
They probably gonna come to work and just go to the funeral, come back to work.
Yep.
It's and we're talking about how, in order for racial relations to be better is for cultures to understand each other. And we were talking about how, generally, or the Balinese they don't want to understand us.
Well, we've still got colonial structures in place.
Yeah.
You've took the example about tangihanga leave, bereavement leave and things like that. Bereavement leave, taking leave to go to a funeral shouldn't just be someone either your sibling or your parent, and that's it.
Yeah.
They even define
Yeah.
who the person is in terms of can you take leave or not. So that is not a Māori. That's not a Māori concept. It's not an Indigenous concept. And you're right. Funerals take time, and they take effort, and careful time and careful effort.
And it's every first cousin has the all of your
Well,
first cousins.
I don't want to joke.
All of your first cousins is 2 weeks, okay?
Yeah.
They don't understand those kind of things.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of who we are.
I got 50 first cousins, so
But I used to be scared of taking leave, even for even I had a couple of aunties and uncles, and I was scared of taking leave. I was thinking of how's my workplace going to judge me.
Bro, I have the same thing, man. I have the same feelings too. Yeah, hey, they're gonna judge me because they're not used to that. I'm gonna take 2 weeks because my auntie died. And you go, hey, auntie, because Palangis, they don't have that. They only have immediate family, and because they've got that culture when you turn 18, you get kicked out of the house.
Yeah.
So automatically,
I got kicked out.
but automatically is like fend for yourself when you're.
Yeah. Well.
But they don't. Yeah, it's not that like collective sort of culture they have. We're individual. We're more collective. Polynesian people more collective. Island people. And
I feel guilty because my family. I feel guilty for not, saying no, I can't go to this funeral because I know, in terms of financial support, in terms of, being marae based. So when you have tangi at a marae, you've got a manaki or look after visitors. You've got to be the speaker on the pai, on the within the pōwhiri or mihi whakatau procedures on a marae. So all those responsibilities, and as a Te Reo Māori speaker who has to carry some of those duties, when I say I can't go, sorry, because work pressures,
See, we shouldn't feel like that. We shouldn't feel like that, eh?
No.
I think when we don't feel like that, that's when things are getting better in this country, in terms of racial relations, right?
Yeah.
When they start understanding us for real, we get 2 weeks off.
It's a hard one. So
when our first cousins die or pass away.
In the current job that I'm in, I would take tangihanga leave, but when I was a high school teacher, it takes so much time to prepare, your lessons when you're away, because you can't just go. You've got to actually write up every lesson that you're away. And the work piles up as the more days you take off school, the more work that piles up when you come back as well. So there's that pressure as well as a teacher. So you always got to sort of weigh that up, and it's hard, definitely.
And but it's that level of understanding in this country that I think things will start getting better.
Yep.
Yeah. When we start feeling bad about taking a couple of days off of work, my boss is gonna get no one's gonna. I'm responsible for a lot of things at work. If I'm gone for this amount of time, then things fall apart. Well, we shouldn't feel like that. If there's something important like a funeral in our own families,
I'm totally
because
that.
I lived in Samoa for 3 months and worked there.
Oh, cool.
And the thing is, over there's no worries or anything about that. The working life there is so relaxed that it's like just, I don't know, you can just walk out whenever you want and no one worries, no one cares. There's no set 9 to 5 sort of thing. There's no, a bit extreme, but there's that feeling of relaxedness. Because to be honest, nothing gets done really. But it's like you don't have to worry about the things that we worry about here, and that's why I felt. But it's sort of like our culture, the way we are with family, especially family in that. It's like us Polynesians, we put family first in front of everything, right? God, family, work. But over here, you gotta work to survive. The Western world we have to work to survive in the Western world, where in our cultures we don't need to work to survive. We live off the land. We're people that live off the land, so we don't need much. Oh.
I think a lot of us have moved away from the working from the land, live off the land concepts.
Yeah, we have, because of how we're how we live now.
what I've noticed when my trips to the Pacific countries as well is the poverty. And I thought to myself, why can't I'm sure our ancestors, sustainably lived off the land and off the sea and things like that, and so when we're seeing less of that, I think these days, and so I would I remember going to some of these markets, like you've got like 8-year-old kids, trying to sell you. In Samoa, for example, at the terminals, bus terminals, or ferry terminals, trying to sell you, these cheap snack type, unhealthy, snacks. And I thought, oh my gosh, shouldn't you be shouldn't you be in school? But secondly, like these kids are doing this, just to survive for themselves and their families as well. I was just thinking to myself, the whole living off the land concept. How do we make that a real option again for so many? But you're right, here in New Zealand, unfortunately, money is survival here. I bought my first home last year, so the mortgages are so I have to work or nowhere to live. So yeah, I mean that's another area I'm really particularly passionate about, sort of helping our most vulnerable communities and whatever we can do to sort of uplift their well-being and things like that.
Yeah, especially these days with the price hikes everywhere, with the war in Ukraine and the petrol prices going up and the cost of living is going up.
Yep.
See the government did their budget last week on Thursday.
Yep.
Giving money out to everyone's getting that $27 a week for 3 months if you earn under 70k.
Yep. What are your thoughts?
I mean, that's what I think, right? $27 a week if you earn under 70k, right?
Yep.
That gives you, if milk costs $6, that's going to give you maybe $4 of milk for free a week. Now, is that something you can cross off your list to expense? Or you can get $2 of milk, free loaf of breads a week.
Yep.
I mean, that's a staple thing that people get every week. You don't have to worry about that for 3 months.
Yep.
But people don't look at it that way. People think it's $27. That's what is that? $27. What can you buy for $27?
Yeah, I think it was a start when I looked at, for example, I looked at the budget and how it would benefit our communities. I see, for example, the half price public transport options.
Yeah.
So I think that's really good, particularly for those who have kids that perhaps go to school or in terms of not using your car to go to work. So I think we need to invest more in our public transport system. So I still like to see light rail or monorail to go to go out to Westgate. I want to see a train basically go out to Westgate. Some of our most growing populations in Auckland are places like Hobsonville and Westgate, and even out to Kumu, for example. Public transport, a nice train, a monorail based train would be ideal to go there, because we still don't have the best public transport infrastructure. I think we are 10 to 15, 20 years behind in what we should have had right now. For example, when I've travelled the world, there's always been like a train that goes right to the terminal in Auckland at the international train stations to the city. Auckland, I think they've got something where you can catch a bus or train close to the airport, but basically I think of Japan's really cool, man. The train just goes right into the terminal, get off the train and just line up.
Yeah.
Line up to leave in the departure lounges. So we've got a bit of work to do on our public transport.
It's funny you bring up public transport, because that's been a big talking point for people that live in Auckland, especially with the complaints about why do we need all these bike lanes everywhere? You can't take your groceries on a bike. But it's funny because I work in town, right?
Yeah.
And they've just I work close to Care Road. And they've just changed it. They changed Care Road to 2 lanes, put those bike lanes on either side.
Okay.
And they've got lights for those bike lanes.
Oh wow.
Okay. Yeah, they've got lights for them. So
cool.
So if you want to cross the road,
you
got to press the button for the bike lane, and then they stop as well as the cars, and then you cross. But then you see 2 guys or maybe 2 or 3 guys just not using the bike lane and using the road because there's too many ins and outs in the bike lane.
All right, too many obstacles.
Yeah, too many obstacles. You got still go on the road because it's faster.
There's a couple of issues in the northwest happening at the moment. There's bike lanes. They've created these concrete barriers for the bike lanes. Unfortunately, people when they put their bins out, they put the bins out in the bike lanes. So you've got problems there.
I like the bike lane across the motorway.
Oh,
now,
cool.
Now they've got it along up to Westgate now.
Yep.
So I see people running those.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
You make sure we need to provide that transport opportunity for people to go on their bikes. That's really important. I remember going to Rotterdam in the Netherlands. I was thinking, man, everyone's riding their bikes and they're catching public transport. Like I wish New Zealand could look like this. Like people are, the attitudes towards riding, it's so normal there. And here we're like, I don't want to ride my bike, or I just want to, drive my car. So when you see people driving their cars to the city, and you look at all the people, there's only one person in the car. It's a waste of resource, it's a waste of gas, and so we're not being efficient because one bus could carry 60-something passengers, and it could take off so many people out of their cars because I think we do need to invest in that. I think of climate change, for example, as well. Public transport is a way of helping supporting the climate change issues too.
Yeah, it's funny because I wasn't a big fan of the bike thing, but until I just realized, okay, if they could invest money in bike lanes where they can make biking safe everywhere, right? You're gonna see a lot of kids biking to work, biking to school, right? And if you see kids biking to school because there's safe bike lanes everywhere, then the congestion will come down because parents aren't dropping their kids to school in their car. They can be safe. They can be safe knowing that the kids can jump on a bike, jump on a safe lane, cycle lane, and ride all the way to school. And that's a positive thing because like I said, they will bring down the traffic.
We need that to happen. I mean, parents are still dropping their kids off when they live like 1 kilometre down the road, and there's been so many accidents as a result of parents. They don't have to do that.
But that whole thing is a fear of. Is that parents' fear of there's more cars on the road that scared kids might get hit, or is it like that thing where kids might get kidnapped? Or because back in my day, man, everyone walked. Everyone walked everywhere.
I had to walk like 5 kilometres to school, and so it was normal for me. So let's see what's happening at the moment.
I see everybody walked. No one. It was the point. I remember if you got dropped off to school, it'll be shameful. Because you don't want to be seen.
I know. I totally get that. It's like, Mom, can you drop me off, on the corner, please? And now, the parents are dropping their kids off in their pajamas, and they don't get it. So,
we love to walk to school, but now it's changed. I think of the fear, social media and all the news, parents are more fearful now with the kids.
I don't think anything's necessarily changed over the past years. Crimes committed every year. I think just the whole idea of the media amplifying, amplifying these particular stories. But I don't think there's, it's still really important just to live our normal daily lives. But obviously, always to be cautious. You have to be careful. But at the same time, it's really important just to live your normal everyday life.
Yeah, I always think about the arguments they have with the bike thing because it was Auckland Transport Day. That's their plan to roll this out, especially in town. Because I'm suffering in town because I have to pay for parking now, and they're doing their best to take cars away from town. They always.
So you drive to town?
Yeah.
Okay.
I drive to town, and gotta pay for parking on the meter thing. But now they've got the because they used to have it's funny because where I work in Pottsby. I park down the street where I know that the parking guy comes once every 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Oh, really?
So you don't have to you don't have to pay the whole fucking $30 a day.
Wow,
$30 a day.
These days?
$30 a day, but in the meter. But because we know he comes every 2 weeks, once every 2 weeks on Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday morning. Wow. So we sort of out his pattern, right?
Okay, well,
so
identify a pattern of,
So what you do is put a coin in. It doesn't matter what coin it is because if you put at least something in, the meter will show.
Yep.
even if it's 10 minutes. And so you only get a smaller fine.
Oh, is that okay?
Right.
Oh,
So you're going to get a $15 fine because they know you've put money in.
right.
They don't care how much.
Oh, is that a thing? Oh, wow. That's something new learning for me.
So if I get a fine, $15, right? It's only $15 every 2 weeks. And that's much cheaper than $30 a day. You know what I mean?
Thank you for that way of.
But see, I'm saying this because they got smarter, right? Now they've got these cars that drive around with cameras on top, taking photos of cars on the street. So now, and they go back to work, whatever, put the data in, and then this car's paid to this time, this car's paid to this time. We'll mail out your fine. So that's how efficient they are now.
They really want to see change.
So that's technology, man. That's technology.
Nice.
But yeah, man. I think it's hard because even though public transport is half price, right?
Yep.
It's still expensive. Like I worked it out, right? I worked it out. So I've got a small car.
Yep.
So it doesn't take much gas, which is cool.
Yep.
From here to town, I'll probably spend $40 a week.
Okay.
$40 a week.
Yep.
If I catch a bus from here to town, it's still $40 a week. So what's more convenient? The car. I might as well put the money in the car and take it to work, and just leave the bus. Because I would love to take public transport if it was much cheaper, even if it's half price. Even half price is still expensive.
You know, Efeso Collins, and he's going for the mayoralty for Tamaki Makaurau. He wants to make the prices, free public transport.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important. You let the half prices stay for a while and see how that goes. And I got feedback from Auckland Transport to say that a lot of people have been have taken up that half price public transport, and the usage of our public transport is much higher than in the last 2 years anyway. So it's there. So if it was free, I mean that would be great. I know we introduced Auckland Council introduced free for kids during the weekends. That was a really cool initiative. But free public transport, I think that would be amazing for Auckland.
Isn't some country doing that? In the Netherlands, maybe?
Oh, it could be Germany. I have to check that. It could be Germany.
Because if this government was really into climate change, they would do that.
Yeah.
They would have free public transport for everybody.
Yeah.
You watch, there's no cars on the road. Everyone will be taking this public transport. Yeah. Because you know what? It makes sense. Because they're trying to charge $30 for every person that parks on the street in town.
Yeah.
Well, no one's gonna be stupid and do that. They'd rather catch a free bus, no matter how long it takes to work, right? Because it's free.
What about the congestion charge? So I know they want.
Well, the buses will be. They won't get the charge.
No, I was thinking that I know that the government wants to introduce a congestion charge for the city centre for anyone that drives. Yeah. And I'll guess people, for example, like plumbers or traders or who won't have to pay for that. But that could be a way of paying to drive in the city area. May put people off. I don't know. I mean, they're trying to deter people. I'm not sure if that will work exactly. Because there's a lot of our families that maybe on low incomes, they actually work in the city as cleaners, for example, and so it'd be unfair for them to be able to pay those congestion charges, and they'll need their cars, etc. But that's been talked about at the moment, a congestion charge.
That'd be fine because don't they work after hours? So there's no charge.
I'm not sure how that's been played out, but you're recognizing that. Traffic jams in the local city area is causing a bit of havoc anyway. More cars are on the roads, and how basically what this government wants to do is trying to figure out what's the best way to get people out of their cars, perhaps using public transport.
Yeah, and the answer is make it cheaper,
or free.
make it free,
or free. Hopefully one day.
I mean, they don't have to buy new buses, just make it free. It doesn't matter what time it's going to come. There's always complaints about 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late. But if it's free, who cares?
Yeah,
you're going to get to A to B.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, I definitely support that. It'd be a great initiative if it was for free. Yeah.
It's funny because the longest time I thought with all the bike thing, everyone if they want everyone to ride bikes, right?
Hmm.
Like I thought was for Auckland was the worst. They had the worst topography for bike lanes,
Right?
Because you know you got a lot of mountains,
Right.
a lot of uphills.
Particularly in like Massey. No?
Exactly.
There's Plymouth Hilly there.
So we have to buy those electric bikes.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. You need that for Donbach Road.
See what the price of those electric bikes? They're the price of a car. Some of them.
Um.
Some price of a used car.
I would. Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, but yeah. I don't own a bike.
Yeah.
But it's something like I'm still waiting for better bike pathways, and once that happens, yeah, I might buy an electric bike. But at the moment, I use my own car and public transport.
Because one of the positives of bikes, it's like health.
Oh, massive.
You bike to work, you bike to and from work. That's your exercise done. Don't need to worry.
Yep, and I guess I think we need to do better in our health. And I think that will provide an opportunity for exercise.
And because yourself,
Yep.
like before we jumped on the mics,
Yep.
you had 2 months of hideout training and dieting,
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
So man, how much have you lost? In the last 2 months?
I recognized basically in the last 2 years, when I was playing competition tennis, that I wasn't playing very well, and I was, I felt unfit. I was playing these, tennis matches can go from say 40 minutes to 3 hours, and I couldn't last. And I was very unfit. And I thought to myself, right, I'm gonna have a bit of a break from tennis, and I really want to focus on my eating, for example. So I went on the keto diet, and at the moment I've probably lost about 11.5 kilos. That's over probably about 3 months. Yeah, 3 months. And that for me focused on food. Recognizing that was probably my downfall. So that I had a lot of for me unlearning. So I really had to sort of unlearn, or food. Food was just food for me. Like I knew that I was very active, but at the same time I knew I could just always grab that and always grab that without even thinking. And so it's been hard. I love bread.
Yeah.
I might eat one of those after this, because you know what, I deserve a one snack break. But like I can't eat fruit, can't eat anything packaged.
The fruit because of the sugar.
The sugar,
Yeah.
so no sugar. The carbs. I love bread. Not being able to eat proper this keto bread, but it tastes like cardboard.
Are you doing a keto diet when you have to measure?
I don't. I'm not very specific in my measurements, but I sort of can guess.
So it's just the no carbs. That's the key.
Yeah, basically. So my best friends are avocados, eggs, nuts, and meat. I eat a lot of. I don't usually eat too much meat at home, but I've been eating meat quite often, more meat than I usually eat. I used to eat meat about 3 times a week, but now it's almost like 6, 7 times a week, and I'm not used to eating so much meat. But that's really weird for me. But also like, so about 65% of your diet is fats, right? So that's another concept of like, I have cream with my keto coffee instead of normal milk, using cream. And I'm like, like I used to be, when you eat dessert, I was like, no cream, please. But now I'm like, I have cream with the keto ice cream. I have cream with everything, and that's so weird for me. And eating the fat off on meats, I usually just cut off the fats and nut, but I'm eating that. So it's been a little bit different for me.
Yeah. Did you learn it off something, or did you, or?
Basically, it was just a wake up call.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot about the keto diet, so for me it was just personal. So my personal research online. I talked to my doctor. He said he's not a fan of the keto diet.
He is? He's
not a fan at all. Not a fan. He wanted me to come off, actually.
How come?
Because of the types of food that we're missing out on. So not eating fruits, for example.
Right.
And it's high cholesterol, sort of, lots of meats and stuff like that, and the fats and stuff like that. He wanted me to go on a Mediterranean. Which is almost like the...
So organic?
Yeah, well...
Seafood and...
Well, they don't basically your red meat intake is very low. Opposite of, sort of opposite of the keto. And so I, for me, have said, actually, no, I'm going to stay in the keto until I've reached my desired weight, and where I feel my best to be able to compete in tennis. And once that happens, I'll slowly go. It's not a forever diet, because I love my bread, and I love kumara, and I love potatoes, and I love fries and battered fish, which I've been missing out on. But so once I reach my weight, I will slowly go back on those foods, but recognizing that I can't just grab that packet of biscuits, I can't just grab that ice cream. I've got to actually be very careful, and also intermittent fasting as well. So I've added that, so I'm not eating till 11, 12 every day.
So you do. Oh, okay.
11. Yeah, I start. Well, I don't.
You just have lunch and that's it.
Well,
11, 12.
Well, I start eating at like 12 o'clock. Really, sometimes I forget to eat, and it's 1 o'clock. So before that, I was like, "What? There's no way I could start eating that. I'm hungry at 7 a.m." And then I've recognized that, wow, I've trained my mind, and that's for me as someone who loves food. Like, I love food.
Yeah.
And Subway was my best friend, and sushi was my best friend, and Uber Eats was my best friend. So I've taken, my Uber Eats app off, and I've noticed the difference, like how I feel.
Yeah.
I've never been on anything like this before, because I always thought, I play sports so much, I'm at the gym all the time. I'm okay, but I was recognizing that I was doing all that stuff, but still feeling unhealthy. So I recognized for me, it was the food.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I remember I went on a health journey a few years ago. Maybe, I want to say it's 2014.
Oh, yeah.
And I was 120 kgs at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, so I decided, okay, enough of this. I'm going to do something about it. So I actually did fasting.
Yep.
It took me a whole year. Didn't it take me a whole year?
What does it look like? What does fasting look like for you?
Sorry, no, I'm wrong. I did fasting another time. This time, I just ate healthy. All I did was eat healthy. So all I did was eat, it was like a thing. Every lunchtime, eat tank.
Okay, yep.
Like, I got the tank.
Yep.
Not the juice, but the...
Salads?
I got the salads.
Yeah.
And then at night, I'll just make sure it's just meat and veg. Nothing processed.
Yep.
Just whatever meat, chicken, vegetables, and that's it. I was strict on that for a whole year. And I went for runs every lunchtime too. Not runs, walks. I just walked for an hour.
Yeah.
And I actually lost like 20 Ks.
Okay.
But it took me a whole year.
What is that?
It took me a whole year.
Over time?
Yeah, it took me a whole year. And I remember, because my goal was 99, right?
Oh, cool.
And I went down to 100.
Yeah.
And then I went back up again, and that was it. I never got back down again. So, see, at the moment, I'm in 130 at the moment. So, ever since that time, like, I've been like sort of, okay, gone up again, maybe go down to 120, 130. I'm between 130 and 120, But the struggle for me is actually carrying on, or just carrying on with it. Like, I would start, and then I would lose track after a week, which is my problem. I gotta get over that. But it's hard when you know you've done all the work and you let it go again, and then you think, man, I gotta do all that work again. And to me, mentally, I'm like, oh fuck, don't worry about it. Like, just try. But so now I'm at the stage where, okay, I'm 130 now. I want to get back to 99. Try make it to 99 again. That's 30 kgs I'm gonna lose, man. And if I do fasting or whatever, I just gotta stick to it. The problem is I'm not sticking to it. It's hard. So it's the mental thing.
Fasting, is that not eating? What does that look like?
So it's just 1 meal a day. So it's just
1 meal a day.
Yeah, it's just dinner. It's better if you have lunch, because you got half a day. Because it counts when you sleep too. So that's 8 hours gone. So that's good. But you're going to carry on with 8 hours. You go up to lunch, you have lunch. And then that's it for the next lunch, the next day. Which is better, because you got two parts of your day either side of the lunch to work it off,
Yep.
But, if you eat at dinner time, starve yourself for the whole day until you get to dinner, have a dinner, you're all right, go sleep, and then do it all over again. But if you do it for like maybe 4 days, you get used to it, and then you won't be as hungry anymore, because your stomach's used to not eating 3 times a day or whatever, and just have one meal a day. So it works if you stick with it and you get used to it. Yeah. So is that what you've been doing, the fasting?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm basically eating half of what I usually eat. So it's like it's bringing the food content down, and I'm not starting eating till lunchtime, but I'm still eating quite late, around 9 o'clock ish. Because because I'm playing sport at night, I come home and I'm hungry, so that's probably another issue I need to deal with. But after playing exercise, I'm always sort of tend to be hungry, so I'm always having dinner quite late. That's probably one of my biggest issues. But I think for me, once I get to my desired weight, I will start to come off it, and probably start to enjoy the foods that I like to eat. But I don't want to be in that position, when you described gaining that weight again, because this for me is mental, and the mental challenge.
Yeah.
And I don't particularly like mental challenges.
Nah.
and I'm impatient.
Yeah.
And I like things to happen now. But I recognize this has been 3 months now, and I've seen the progress over time. So when I see the progress, and people are noticing the progress as well, but okay, that's the extra motivation that I need.
Yeah, it is, and it helps you carry on.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want to mess it up, you know.
No.
I just messed it up when I did it, but yeah, man, that's I need to. I don't know what it is. I need to actually just. I don't know what I did before to make me realize, okay, just and stick with it for a whole year, because I did it for a whole year. I don't know what my mental was to allow me to do that.
Yeah.
I can't remember
one meal a day.
Yeah, I can't remember what my mentality was to help me get through that.
I think you have to be very goal. I mean, it's got to be around a particular goal that you have. Right, for example, you want to be able to, you go to this event and look your best or feel your best at this particular this event. So for me as well, another purpose for me is that I'm off to Boston, for 5 months in December.
I saw that on social media. You going to UMass?
Yeah, I'm going to UMass, and Boston and Amherst, and so. I won a scholarship there. To the university there. Oh, thank you, Mary. And so my research project is going to work alongside Native American youth and what school was like for them, and sort of compare that to Maori youth here in Aotearoa. And so for me, I want to go to America feeling my best, not feeling sluggish,
right?
And just feeling, that I can do this work. It'll be a new environment for me, and to be able to do my best, I need to feel my best. And so that's where the keto diet has helped. Yeah.
Man, so when are you going to leave?
I'm going in December, so it's blizzard season, and
Was it?
I don't know if you've seen the photos, but it's blizzard. There's snow everywhere, and it's going to be an awesome time. Don't get me wrong. I'll be in Christmas in New York City.
Right.
My parents will come. I shouted them a trip to the States for Christmas time, and we'll just have Christmas there. And then they'll go, and then I'll just focus on my studies. And I'm going to have an awesome time. It's winter, it's cold, but you know what? That's all good.
So you'll be there for a year? Or how many?
Just a short time.
Oh, okay.
So I've taken leave. I'll be, if I get elected to council, I'll be joining my meetings online on council. And so I've taken about 4.5 months.
Over there in
over
Boston.
there. Yeah, I mean, that's like, I had to be realistic about there. I couldn't spend a year there because I still want to be able to do the work that I do here. So I took the shortest amount of time that I could off for leave. And so, I'll do that. And I've never been to Boston. I've been to the States about 3 times. Haven't been to Boston. It's like the academic city of the world, I think.
They got Harvard there.
Well, you've got Harvard there. And people ask me, why don't you choose Harvard? Because I was lucky enough to be able to choose.
Oh, really?
What university I wanted to go to.
And you went to UMass. You went to the home of...
Yep. I went to UMass. And I tell you why. People think, why don't you choose Harvard? Why don't you choose Yale or MIT or Stanford or Princeton? All the Ivy League universities. But I spent about a month looking at different universities, because I could go to any university in the country, basically. They would have me. And I was looking through them, and when I looked at UMass Boston, 2 things really popped out for me. One, it's the 3rd most diverse university in the country, and that's really good for me to learn Oh, well, I know being Māori, there'll be very few Māori at any university in the States, but for me, to be able to learn from different people. So that's the first point. The second point was that UMass Boston, most of the people that go there, they're the first in their families to go to university. It's a public university. It's not a private. It's the university where people go for the first time in their families. And I like that. I love the concept of how, university education is an equalizer in terms of education, that many minority groups are able to experience university life, and they choose this particular university. It's a public university, so it takes away that snobbery factor. So the whole idea of Harvard or going to an Ivy League university, that necessarily, I don't like. Having gone to a flash university is not a big appeal to me. So when I saw that concept of the first in the family, I thought, this is the one. This is the public university. This is the one for me. So I'll go here.
Sort of like going, it's sort of like choosing Bradford College over Auckland Boys Grammar.
Yeah, give me Massey High, give me Waitakere College over King's College. Honestly, I'm a big fan of going to your public school, your community school, and supporting that community school. So, I already have a PhD. I went to Otago University for that, and so you
got your doctorate.
I'm Dr. Will Flavell.
Dr. Will Flavell.
That's basically my name. And I like to use that particularly when I need a favour, or I need some help. Oh, you're a doctor. Yep, please help me now. So I've used that to get me into particular doors. But I'm a big fan of public education. Education should be free. And so because I know that with education that empowers families, it empowers Indigenous and migrant communities, and the power of education. It's so important, and so that's why I chose UMass.
I know UMass because that's where Marcus Camby went.
Really?
Do you know Marcus Camby?
Marcus Camby. Remind me.
He's an NBA player and played for Toronto Raptors.
And he went to UMass.
When he got drafted.
Cool.
And that's where I knew UMass from.
That's awesome. No, thank you. I wasn't sure any famous people were going to.
But I didn't know what kind of school it was like. Yeah, so it was a public.
It's a public
university.
Oh, yeah. So they got UMass Boston and there's UMass Amherst. So I'm going to both of them. Amherst is the flagship university. It's been around for a long, long time. So UMass Boston is the sort of the newer city version of that. So it is a public university. And I love that.
Yeah. Been watching the Boston Celtics? They're in the playoffs right now.
So when I go there, I'm going to go to NBA, NFL. I'm going to the ice hockey. I'm going to go to every sport. I love experiencing big sport. Yeah. So I'll be going there checking out the sport. They got the US Open, which is in New York City. It's 3 hours. Right. 3 hours away by train, by car. So I mean, I love watching sports. So I'll be there.
Did you watch that King Richard movie?
I did.
What did you think?
Wow, I mean, that man, first of all, I'm a big fan of Serena Williams. I mean, they were around when I was at high school. Serena was number one when she won her first Grand Slam at 17 years old. 17, that's insane. And she's 41 now, and she's still playing tennis. Yeah. When many people wrote both the Williams sisters, and they're both still in their 40s and still playing professional tennis, that's mad. So first of all, Serena for me is the greatest athlete of all time, male or female, easy. I mean, she's a champion at 17 and still a champion at 41. That's insane.
Whoa! I never followed that.
Who can replicate that? I mean, imagine that being a number one at that age and winning, in your 40s. I mean, that's insane. So,
wait, what if Tiger Woods wins? Nah, he didn't win when he was a teenager.
Well, he was quite good as a teenager, but the thing though is he's been inconsistent. I mean, Serena Williams, she's won gold medals, back in the year 2000. She's won she's doubles champion, singles champion, number one, gold medalist. I mean, she's achieved everything you could as a tennis player. And she overshadowed her. So it was Venus that was making the inroads first. But Serena just basically she was the more talented sister. But Richard, man, like, what an insane man, but what a cool guy. He had these dreams and aspirations for his two kids from Compton. To make it big, he had this plan for them. He had a plan. And that's one of the, the greatest sporting stories in the world to have these two young girls from a minority background take over a sport that was essentially a white, wealthy sport in tennis, and they changed that.
And plus where they're from too. Like City Compton is like, low socioeconomical suburb in California, right?
Yeah, I mean, you saw in the movie that they grew up playing on public courts. There were gang issues around the public, the public courts, and they still practiced and they still trained, really hard. A lot of, New Zealand tennis scene is not great. And what we notice is that if you've got money in tennis, you generally do well. So you got a lot of professional tennis players who do well because their parents play tennis and they've got money, etc. And that helps. But the Venus and Serena story with tennis, that's huge.
It's cool because that time when Venus and Serena blew up, it was the same time Tiger Woods blew up. And you think about these two sports, white-dominated sports, and these African Americans just dominated
in their own game.
And at the same time.
Yeah, insane. Early 90s.
Yeah,
early 90s. No, it was insane. And so, I still believe that Serena, I've got to say, is hands down, and there'll be challenges with that. Has to be the greatest athlete of all time, not just the greatest female athlete, the greatest athlete ever. And that's what I believe in.
I'm thinking about what you said. I just can't think of anyone else on top of my head.
I mean,
it's
and not just that, but it was the barriers you had to push through, both as female, the barriers that come with being female, but also the ethnicity, not being, being African American. That's another barrier. So she had to work 3 times as harder than other athletes who don't face the gender barriers or don't face the ethnicity barriers. So that's why her accomplishments are much greater than others.
Muhammad Ali, close second.
I guess
He just came to mind.
Yeah, no. That example is different. And that was also at different times, and you could almost argue that he also faced massive challenges. The idea of protesting about not going compulsory serving for the states in the wars, the Vietnam War, and so of course there would have been different challenges for him, and maybe it was more difficult for him than say Serena or Venus Williams, but just trying to think of other athletes.
That might be a good thing to have a post about on social media. Like who asked the question there, who do you think the greatest athlete is in the world? All time. Oh, that's a good one. I'm gonna use that one. Yeah. You said like you have your doctorate. What was your thesis on?
Yeah. So it was about the learning experiences of non-Maori high school students learning Te Reo Māori. All right. So
there was a lot.
Yeah. So thinking about like why did they choose to learn the language at high school? What was talk to me about some of those learning experiences. How do they feel? Why do they learn it? And why do they think is it important or not? And why?
So did you find more white people or Pacifica people?
Yeah, interesting. So I interviewed probably not many, but they were mostly Pacifica, so Samoan, Niue, and Tongan. I did one Pākehā student, so it was really fascinating to sit with them and like why on earth did you, as a non-Māori, choose Te Reo Māori at high school?
Right.
It was fascinating to listen to these stories.
What was the reason?
Oh, lots of things. Like, for example, like their families, their parents had really good attitudes towards things Māori. So that usually trickles down. Like if you've got parents that really appreciate things Māori or are involved in the Māori community, that sort of trickles down with their kids. So you know how we talked about racism beforehand from older people? That usually trickles down to their kids as well, right? So if those older people, parents, they have really positive attitudes towards things Māori. The kids talked about that. They, for example, my parents, wanted me to learn Māori at school, and they love things Māori. They talked about Māori should be compulsory in schools as well. We had that conversation. Like most of them said like up to year 12 even. So we talked about all the things that they thought about, they liked about learning Māori, some of the challenges. They talked about like having good relationships with Māori students at school, like at high school. So they felt that if they didn't have good, like if the Māori kids at school weren't like mates with them, they would have maybe struggled. But since they had a really good relationships with the Māori kids, but also talked about like how a Māori class was different from, say, an English class. So one kid was like, you know what, we do our work together, we write the essays together, we brainstorm together, we do the research together, that whole idea. And that's what I really wanted to in our Māori classes. I really like a whānau-based, like collaborative approach. That's such a normal way of doing things in the workforce, right? We're not expected to sit at our desks and to do things ourselves. You know, we collaborate, we ask for views and opinions from our workmates. That's natural, and I think that our education system still doesn't tend to do enough of that.
You think about the stereotypical white corporate office.
Yep.
You're one person and stuck in your cubicle.
Yep.
You know, with walls.
Yep.
Around you, and you're with the phone and the computer, and that's it.
Yep.
I mean, that's their way of. That's their culture, right? That's their.
Yep.
I mean, that's how they think of
individual success.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to move past that. I mean. You know, I think of things like, you know, like in the Māori exam, the NCA exams, for example, like when you have to write essays, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, so I don't teach now, so I can say things like this, thinking like how is it natural to sit with a pen and a paper and write a 400-word essay? You know, if I was to write an essay at home, I would have access to, you know, dictionaries. I have access to sort of apps on my phone to help me, you know, with some of the sentences and the grammar and things like that. But basically, you're going into these exams, and it's almost like just memorizing. That's not learning. A lot of kids are memorizing content before going into the NCA exams, and I think there has to be a different shift on how we examine or how we test kids. Like I visited Finland, and I went into some of the schools. So, you know, they don't do they don't have private schools. And
oh really?
No private schools in Finland. They what's really cool was that they every school feeds their kids. They have hot lunches, cafeteria, hot lunches. That and they don't and so they really look after the kids there. And there's no exams, not until, you know, your final year. So there, you know, I mean, we test and we examine our kids to death, and I don't think it's helpful.
What country was that again?
Finland.
Finland.
Yeah, has the best education system in the world.
It'll be interesting to see what their inequality rate is, because that to me, when you're including everyone, inequality goes down.
Well, you know,
the inequality.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely easy. I mean, they start school at 6, and they start that 6 or 7, and they start quite late because they believe in the whole concept of playing. You know, that preschool idea of playing together, of discovering your environment instead of your 5 years old learning numeracy and a workbook. That's that, you know. So I love the idea, a concept of young kids sort of discovering their environment. You know, working on relationships with other kids before that idea of, you know, of literacy, numeracy, which is really pushed into our kids here. So, Finland has the best education system in the world, and you know, when we talk about jobs like plumbing and building and all those jobs, that's seen just as important as going to university for the academic stuff. You know, still here we've got the stigma attached to like construction-based jobs. You know, and we've got to actually recognise that, you know, those jobs are just as important, you know, as going to university. So I really like that the system in Finland. Yeah. But
what's the cultural sort of demographic in Finland? Is it just Finn people there, or is it different cultures, different Europeans there, or do they have indigenous?
They do. Yes, they do. That's another story, but it's called the Sami people. The Sami people, and you know, similar experiences of other indigenous people. Their language taken away. So there's a very small number of Sami people there.
So as a society, and they're still able to bring down the inequality by having equal, like, no private schools. Because the way I think of it, what that does when I think of Auckland, for example,
Yep.
like when I think of west, east, north, south,
Yep.
right? The demographics are comparable, right?
Yep.
You got all the Pacific Islanders in the south. You got mixed races out west. You got maybe more. It's like a economical factor in central. You got the whites out north shore.
Yep.
You got the Asians out east. You know, it's segregated that way.
And that was on purpose. I think it was a purposeful plan.
Yeah.
And
But is that a purpose plan from the city planning, or was that just the way things go when people immigrate down here
I
and,
don't think
and they
that's
just
true.
go where everyone else goes? Like where they say South Africans all in the North Shore.
Yeah.
Because all the South Africans are there, so we'll go over there.
Damon Salisa wrote this in his book called Island Time, and he pointed out, and that, if I was to recommend a book as an easy read, Island Time, he talked about, for example, and you've got a Decile 1 school, say South Auckland Decile 1 school, where it's mostly Pacifica Māori kids there, and just 5 minutes down the road you've got a Decile 10 school with mostly Pākehā, European Pākehā students. So we live in a ethnic segregated city, and I still believe that was on purpose.
Yeah.
And it's really weird. So if you go to Finland, for example, no private schools. You've got wealthy kids and those who don't come from wealthy backgrounds go to the same school.
Yeah.
No rivalries. And I think that we've marketed our schools. When you look at that, the decile system, for example.
They're getting rid of it, I heard, on the budget. They're getting rid of the decile system.
Well, absolutely. Because in the past, people have said, oh no, it's a decile 1 school, that means the kids don't achieve well, which is absolute rubbish. The decile system was based on the socioeconomic background surrounding particular schools, or what in terms of house prices or what families earn. It had nothing to do with achievement. Macaulay High School a couple of years ago was the top NCA high achieving school. I think it was it's a decile 2 school, I think. And so decile systems mean nothing, but people still hang on to the idea, oh no, low decile means low achievement. And we've got this thing called white flight. I don't know if you've heard of white flight. That is basically Pākehā kids who live in brown areas will purposely not go to their local school and go to a school where there are more.
Is that what happened to Auckland Girls Grammar?
Hey?
That's what happened to Auckland Girls Grammar back in the days, though.
I don't know. So,
because then they have this story I heard. They had like a controversial principal, take over the Auckland Girls Grammar, and the white people didn't like her because her views on I think she was lesbian.
Okay.
I don't know the story I heard, and she had views like feminine kind of views that the white parents didn't like.
Really?
So they took all their kids out over there. So they had trouble with not having the numbers. So they opened it up to everybody.
Oh, is that what happened?
And that's why there's like a lot of Pacific Islanders go there.
Yes, absolutely. I know. I didn't know the background story, but that's really interesting. Because I remember going in there once thinking, wow, there are so many Pacifica kids here in a central Auckland school. And I thought that was interesting. But if you've just told me that story, it's not zoned. So when you zone a school, it means that if you live outside the area, you can't go. Many schools are zoned.
Yeah. I mean that's a story I heard.
Yeah.
But I might be wrong. But
yeah, that's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Because it's funny that there is a lot of Pacific Islander girls that go to that school.
Absolutely, I've been there. I've visited the school. And
then if you go to Auckland Boys Grammar, it's all white kids, and it's like you'd think that there'd be heaps of white kids at Auckland girls.
We've got to make sure though that we support our local schools. I don't see what the reason why we need to travel outside, to external schools. There's nothing wrong with our West Auckland schools. I think they're all great. All of them are great, and so I think we need to support our local schools. I know some people send their kids out, maybe because their brothers or sisters went to that particular school. But when you talk about what is a good education, what does that actually mean? I think it's
for me. I think it's what they have at their school. Like, for me, what the what the school desal system did was just allow government to just top up
Yep.
the schools that don't get much support from
That's right.
the community, right?
That's right.
But you can tell the trickle down system ain't working, because even though the government tops it up, the rich areas still can give more than what the government can top up.
Absolutely.
So it's like it's a failure. It's a failure. The desal system is a failure, right? That's why they want to change it. But I don't know what the solution is. Are they going to put more into the schools that need help? More into like the equipment and stuff? Because if you go to these schools like Auckland Grammar Kings,
Yep.
look at all the facilities they have. I mean, look at the equipment they have. And sort of like their subjects, and like a lot of these schools don't get these things, these opportunities like these bigger schools do.
No, you're right. You're right in that respect. I think sporting facilities are huge. Some courts, some schools have proper tennis courts. It's like, wow, proper tennis courts. We've got these ugly, most schools have those ugly concrete things, public looking courts. All these flash schools had all these flash facilities. I think it was awesome. Yeah, you're right. I mean,
for example, look at Henderson High.
Yep.
Right? That's come up in the last 15, 20 years.
Yep.
I mean, when I was at school, Henderson High was one of the worst schools at West.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Had a bad reputation, no uniform.
No uniform.
Yeah, no uniform, bad reputation. Like bad kids went there, and look what they got. They got that nice turf hockey ground in the front. They've done it up, and I heard that obviously they got a uniform now.
I like the uniform.
And they're one of the top schools out west now.
Yeah, man, they're
so
doing
that's a
cool
big
stuff.
change.
No, I love Henderson High. I drive past at school all the time. It looks like pretty cool school. Pretty close to public transport, so I think that's pretty cool. All our schools, Massey, Waitakere, Rutherford College. I mean, I'm not biased, but Rutherford's the best in the West. That's not it's not just me that says that. I'm sure everyone else says it. But no, we got some cool schools in West Auckland. I know, for example, they've got conversations around. I don't know if you heard about Kelston.
I heard they're not doing well academically now these days.
They want to be able to combine the schools.
What do you mean?
Well, for example, they're talking about do we have a boys and girls school together?
Oh, join up with Auckland.
Yeah, join up.
Kelston
girls, Kelston boys, and which school will move to which, site. So with those conversations have been going around for 4 years, and it's fascinating. I've taught in not only boys only school, and I know before I went to a mixed co-ed school as a student, and I've also taught at co-ed and an all boys school, and all boys schools do work. They do work. For the boys that need it, I think they do work.
Yeah.
And I thought, why do we have boys schools and girls schools?
Is it like a distraction with the girls?
Well, maybe it's that, but also it's like boys can be boys, and that's okay. Boys, they do random things as a teenager, and that's okay, they can just grow and develop, and not have distractions. And that's why I thought, okay, this works, because I went in before the mentality thinking, this doesn't look like what our society looks like, that we segregate into genders, but actually for boys, I think, these schools do work for some of them.
I agree with you there, because I can understand when you're a boy in the school, you need to have your boys around you, like your friends, and when you grow up with that kind of friendship with boys, it leads later in life to lifelong friendships and connections and all that, and especially with sports, the team environment, the boys kind of stuff. That's
really important, because I actually think about my schoolmates. I don't think I hardly talk to any of them, and I think about all my friends at my age who went to all boys schools. They regularly keep in touch, and they regularly do things with them, and thinking, man, what was the difference? Is it because it's much more the close knit relationships at an all boys school? I don't know.
And I think you get more tribalism going on with the boys' schools, because you get more proud of the school, because you come from the same place, and you support because boys, they love sports, right?
Wow.
So when you're in the sports team, it's even better because you're supporting this. You're part of the culture of the sports culture, right?
Yep.
And you're part of a team. You're part of that.
Yep.
You get that tribalism going, and that's why you see when you look at 1A schools rugby.
Yep.
Like there's when you watch them play, like see how the students come and do the haka, and they're all supporting, and it's like real. It's like college football in the States. That kind of tribalism, the whole supporting thing,
Oh, and there's massive skills from that, working as a collaborative, working as a team, working together, working for a goal or a purpose. Those are all things that we can take later into life. And I'm glad you mentioned sport. I mean, I want all our kids to participate in sport. And I had a conversation with a lot of these athletes today this morning when I was speaking to them about
where were you?
I was at the Kaihautū Tennis Club, and I spoke to some older athletes, and I was talking. They were asking me, "What are my goals for the community, for the elections? What will I do?" And I will, and something I thought about, when we talk about ram raids and all that stuff that's been going in the media, I want our kids to be active participants of our community, and I know sport can do that, and I want our kids playing sport, and so. That's one thing that I'm going to really push as much as I can if I get elected again. Figure out on ways that you just eliminate barriers where kids can be really proactive, sports or clubs or involved in events. Because, COVID showed us those who have and those who have not, right? So, I remember when COVID started and, devices, and I was speaking to a principal in Otara who said that one family only had one mobile device, in terms of a learning device. I'm thinking, you had King's College students, and I was speaking to a family from King's College that because they were so used to being able to learn from home, that when lockdown hit, it was easy for them. They've got their own room, unlimited amount of food. They can connect with their schooling. But for those who did not have experience with learning from home or the correct IT gear, internet access, they struggled from learning from home. A lot of our families live in overcrowded, conditions where, it's impossible to be able to learn in an environment, an environment where they can just focus. So, so we see the haves and the have-nots. So my job right now is to figure out what can I do in my council job to support those families that are struggling, just to make it a bit more easier. So I'm going to be going around the community as much as I can, just to listen to experiences and figure out what I can do in the next term.
I always love the idea of knowing what the secret of life is. Secret of what is life? What is the secret of life? And what you've been saying, I always think of, how we said, we're talking about going to all boys school. I think the secret is, as human beings, we need to be around other human beings. The interaction and the connection. No matter no matter what level it is, we need to have that. When people call other people, or when people are loners, loners, that's not the way I think human beings are supposed to be. Human beings are supposed to be around other human beings, and I think that is the secret.
Do you think we've created environments where people who, I guess, are deemed loners, we've got these artificial environments that actually put people off, because they may be different from the norm or different in terms of how they act or how they see the world, and then they think, oh, people don't accept me, and I don't feel accepted in a mainstream environment. So perhaps they're put off. Is that what you're thinking?
I think that's what you're talking about is what technology has done.
Okay.
Social media, or even, because it's scary to me how you're able, human beings are able now, if you really wanted to sit in your room in front of your computer and be there all day for the rest of your life, because you can now and have as long as you've got an ensuite. Your suite, you can stay in that room forever, because you can stay there, work online. You can order Uber Eats, food comes to your door. You can go to the bathroom and you're ensuite, and go to sleep, wake up, do the same thing every single day of your life till you die. I mean, if you that's extreme, but if you really want to, you can. I mean, that's an option if you're dumb enough to do that, or you've got nothing else, you could do that. I mean,
and people do that.
People do that. Like you talk about, like, I don't know if the people that just do gaming, you know, they're close to that. Then you got the people that, like, I don't know if you heard of those incels. You know, those guys that they just develop hate over talking to people that hate people, and then they go out and do something bad to people.
Okay, I haven't heard that.
Like, it's all that, like, what social media does, and, like, it creates, like, for example, the guy that had the machine gun and went to the mosque. He might be in this community online, just developing this hate. All he knows, you know, and then they go out. There's communities like that online that develop these kind of people. They do shit like that. You know, it's that all, but it's not like face to face. It's not human beings connecting with each other on a face to face level. It's not growing up with people. It's not, you know, interacting, which is I think is what we're meant to be doing. And when we use technology to be in the way of that, like looking at a screen, going on Zoom, not feeling the person, not being face to face with the person, and you know that's not what we're meant to be doing. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean. So I'll give you an example in Japan. They call it hikikomori. Basically 2 million young people in Japan don't leave their home. They don't leave their rooms. Hikikomori. It's I'm trying to find an English equivalent. It's almost like depressed / don't want to go out in the real world society, so they're just locked up in their rooms. And that's because, Japan's still quite a homogenous society, and if you're not following the sort of orderly, normal Japanese way, you're seen as an outcast. And so it's a hikikomori is such a big issue I'm in Japan, so I can I can relate it to that in terms of people who actually do not leave their rooms, who are depressed, maybe had negative experiences in the community and don't want to go out there again. But actually, if you think of social media, I mean, that's what brought me here, right? Social media. So actually, I have to thank social media for so many opportunities in my life.
I mean, that's the positive side of social media, if you know how to use it positively.
I think it's about 90, I don't know, just give a random number, 90%, positive.
Yeah.
I've been able to meet so many awesome people as a result of social media. Of course, it can be used really badly.
That Japanese thing, is that because of technology?
No.
Or just saving, because Japanese always about saving face all the time. Eh?
Well,
what's that called?
The phrase that I've penned is hikikomori, and it's they've got an actual particular word for that. It's one word that describes it's youth. So it's usually they consider youth 40 and under, who don't leave their homes, who aren't sociable, and they just stay in their rooms.
Wow.
And there's lots of documentaries on that, documenting reasons why. It's really fascinating. So
it's got nothing to do with technology.
No, I mean technology didn't cause that. So it could have been like negative experiences. Right. Could have been the pressures of Japanese, like marriage before a particular age, or when you finish high school, you get into a best university. So there's so much social pressures in Japan, and those who don't necessarily reach those social pressures, they struggle. And sort of go in sort of a spiral of depression.
So you're lucky, going around the world and seeing all these different ways and cultures, and that's awesome.
I mean, with Japan, so I went to Japan. I've been 10 times. One of the times was specifically to have a look at this. I was invited. I was invited by the government to represent New Zealand on I was there to look at what they do in terms of young people, who are locked in their rooms, hikikomori. And then I was supposed to sort of give advice on what I saw and based on what works in New Zealand. So that was a really cool experience. So, yeah, I guess I am pretty lucky to have seen the world.
You know that hikikomori?
Yep.
Is that over here? Like, have you seen situations like that over here?
Well, it's a very specific Japanese phrase, but actually they've got the same concept in South Korea too. So I don't know. The pressures of Asian communities, and I don't want to generalize, but are different. Are different. They've got different societal norms, and so different pressures.
Because I know in Japan they have the saving the face thing all the time. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
You don't embarrass anyone, and if this kid, it's better to be indoors and not, be exposed to save your face out there. So you rather be staying at home. Maybe. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
I think about when I speak Japanese for example, like when you speak Japanese, you're not supposed to be direct.
Right.
So if they say let's say 一緒にデパートに行きませんか? Shall we go to the mall together? You can't say no. You've got to figure out a way. So there are ways of like. So, and this is with Japanese culture. You've got to figure out, I might be busy that day, or So the whole idea of being direct in Japanese culture is a no-no. So they've got even the language stuff. So,
So how do you ask when you think?
Well,
you can't be direct.
You can't answer if it's a no.
Yeah.
You can't answer no direct because it's seen as being rude. You can't. Yeah. So it's about how you answer it and how you sort of. Beat around the bush, and then the other person's supposed to understand when you beat around the bush. Like, oh, sorry, but
okay.
So like it's fascinating, like language stuff. The languages, as a multilingualist, I'm always fascinated by how language. And think about the Samoan language as well. You've got for me. You've got the K sound, and the T sound, the T language and the K language.
T, but we pronounce it K.
Yeah. Which is So I learnt in the T way, and when people speak to me,
because that's the proper way when you talk proper.
Well,
and then when you just average talking on the street or talking to your at home, you turn into a K.
I guess so. But like when I think of like the was it Tula Fale. The orator, like I see them. They speak in the K sometimes. When they're
that's different. The Makai when they got different language.
I hear the K. I hear the K in there, and I'm thinking, oh, why are they speaking in the K?
Yeah.
And so this is good. This is good for me because like it's learning. Like, oh, that's different. I thought it would be T because they're very formal and things like that. So I love that concept of.
Specific.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So language is always fascinating me.
Do they all have that same differences? Like when you have different speakers and like the proper way and then the slang way and then the chief way.
We don't. You don't. Yeah, man. I always gotta be. For me, like I always like I think of Samoan figure out like what kind of chief are you? Like, what do I use? Awhio mai, susu mai. What should I use? Lau sunga, lau awhionga. And I think, so it confuses me. Probably confuses a lot of Samoans, but it confuses me as a Maori. Like, I know what term do I use.
So Te Reo doesn't have that?
No, we don't.
Okay.
But what we do is we have dialectal differences. So, for example, what's a word? We'll say. The word whakapapa, right? Whakapapa. So it can be sort of loosely translated to like family genealogy. So one area could say whakapapa, other area could say hakapapa, other areas will say wakapapa, and then when I hear that, I instantly know where they're from because that's a regional dialect, and that's really cool. And a good Māori speaker should be able to recognise that. So I instantly know where you're from if you pronounce a word a certain way. The dialectal differences. That's the only thing we've got in our language.
Yeah. I just had a thought. I went down to Wanganui because our boy he was playing basketball down there.
Yep.
That's why I brought up the expensiveness.
Oh no.
It's a fork out.
Kalofe.
1100 for that tournament.
Oh, bruh.
But anyway, went to because I haven't been there before. Have you been there?
I've never been there. Never.
To Wanganui?
No.
Well, they got there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing to do down there.
Oh, well,
There's
okay.
nothing.
I was
It's
wanting
like-
to go in the future, but okay.
I mean, they got a nice river. They got a nice bridge going over the river, and a nice little town thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, if you're a city boy, you won't like it. You know.
Okay.
So anyway, we went down there, and there's nothing to do, so we went to the museum, and they had these all the Maori artifacts there, like and I was thinking, and it was all in glass and showing people. I don't know if you feel it. I don't know. I never felt this before, but I felt, man, why is this in the bloody museum? Like, shouldn't we just know all this anyway? Shouldn't this be out? We live here. Shouldn't all this stuff be on the streets anyway? Like, why do we have to go to museums to look at this stuff when we should walk out the door and we see it going to work? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I was like, for the first time, I felt, oh, fuck, this felt wrong. This felt wrong. You know.
I think we're doing better though. I think some parks, in terms of we call them po. So like the how would you describe that in English? You see different maybe like a sort of a gate way style poles in the ground. I think of Henderson Park, for example. When you go in Henderson Park and you see a beautiful sort of like a Māori. So things like that. And we've seen.
Why can't we have that more everywhere?
Oh, that's council's job.
So we don't have to look at this in the museum,
That councils really need to push that. It's really cool though. I can go to parks and then I can see the Māori history of the area. I think that's really important. Just go to the parks and we're doing better at that. We are doing better at that. Obviously more work needed in that space. I think of the mountains, the maunga here. So we've got 14 maunga here. And every maunga has a different story, like maunga kia. You've got the maunga out in Mangere, and all had a different purpose. So it'd be cool to see signage and how early Māori used that particular maunga mountain. So I think we need to do better in terms of educating the public on these awesome public spaces that we do have.
Or have more of these public spaces, I think.
Yep.
That's just how I felt when I was in there. It's like when tourists come here, I expect them to see it everywhere in the outdoors, not like I want them to go to the museum and see it. Oh, why are we looking at this? We just saw this 10 times outside.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess some of our old artifacts, doing hundreds of years old, maybe it's good to keep it in a glass case so it doesn't get damaged or something like that. But I'd love to see more, Māori things within our, I want to walk down like Queen Street or just any major street and just feel like I'm in Aotearoa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I want to look around. Like, it was interesting. One person made a comment like they walked into like these different schools in New Zealand and they were saying, this feels like just a typical like school I walk into in Australia or the States. It doesn't feel like I'm in a school in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So that really made me push it. What does that actually look like? How can people who perhaps come from overseas walk into a New Zealand school thinking, "Yep, I feel like I'm in a different. I'm in a school in Aotearoa." I know, for example, like in a marae, a lot of schools have marae and a lot don't have marae. So marae have been really good, authentic learning spaces for our Māori kids, or a really safe space to learn te reo Māori, tikanga Māori. And for many non-Māori kids, it's how they've been exposed to things Māori in a school environment is by school marae. So I like to see more of that in our schools.
Yeah, man. It's like... So December you're going to go to America? Excited?
I'm super excited. Gonna go to the sport games. Canada's up the road. I'm really interested in also the slavery movement in the States.
Oh, right.
Slavery movement in the States. I'm really interested in civil rights.
Yeah.
And the past. So learning more about Martin Luther King and his particular journeys. They've got these, the cotton fields and how they have them as slaves, and now that they're museums, a lot of them anyway. So I'm really interested to learn more I mean, that fascinates me, and how that wasn't that long ago either, you know, and how the whole idea of minority groups sort of reclaiming power again. Or I think that's really cool to see. So I'm a history buff anyway, so I'm really interested in seeing that, and hopefully a visit to the White House. Obviously not in the White House, but I'll take a selfie outside the White House in Washington DC.
It's interesting, you know, that civil rights thing in the past, especially when you think of guys like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X.
Yeah,
so like opposites of the same coin. You know?
absolutely.
Malcolm X believed in you take it by force.
Yes,
you win by force. When Martin Luther King said, you know, you do it by peace. So it's an interesting time, eh? It was an interesting time at that time, and it's funny how I think the young generation went more Malcolm X because, you know, they were angry.
Yeah.
You know, they were angry getting pushed around in that. So you had to fight back.
Yep.
You know.
I mean, we've got our own New Zealand Māori examples of that. I think of the Taranaki Wars, you know, Parihaka, which is the peace movement in Parihaka. So, you know, there are examples there, you know, where the British soldiers, you know, just trampled, you know, on the land, and instead of retaliating, you know, the Māori chiefs there, they said, you know, let's not retaliate. Well, what we'll do instead is that we'll give them bread, we'll perform for them. And the soldiers were thinking, what the heck is this? You know, you're not retaliating, you're actually doing good things for us. And so Parihaka, based in Taranaki. So, you know, there's a bit of story there. The men were taken for prisoners. They're taken to Wellington. You know, this is unjustified, by the way. And they were made to work on the roads in Dunedin. And so they've got these caves in Dunedin. I don't know if you've been to Dunedin before. So there's some stories around like the Māori that were taken from Parihaka and they were imprisoned unfairly, transported to Dunedin to work on the roads, and it's freezing, so some died as a result of the temperatures, and they were forced to live and stay in those caves. They call them the Māori caves. So yeah, a bit of a history there. So we had our own like Māori versions of Martin Luther King, where let's try to use peace as a means of combating against this violence, and so yeah.
See, this is the type of history we never learn at school. Like, that kind of stuff. Like, what did we learn? We just learned the Treaty of Waitangi, and that was it.
Well, how good did they teach you the Treaty of Waitangi? It was just a bunch of dates or what happened before, during, and after, because...
Yeah, all I remember was, okay, it was the time, and then there was, like, different translation of the different... Different the translation of it, there was different meanings, eh?
Absolutely. I mean, bearing in mind that beforehand, you know, there were French, Americans, and the English here. There was disorderly behaviour by them, and the Māori chiefs were concerned about their own safety. So they wrote a letter to the Queen, you know, come down and help us. So you got the declaration that was signed in 1835 before that, and then the treaty was signed in 1840. But we know that the treaty was simply ignored. You know, that was, you know, I mean, you had the Crown took land, they took resources of Māori, you know. I mean, the treaty guaranteed, you know, possession of Tonga, things that were important to them. So, I think when you look at treaty claims right now, when you look at, you know, iwi sort of want, you know, some iwi didn't even sign the treaty. So if you're an iwi that didn't sign the treaty, what does it mean for them?
Yeah, what does it mean for them?
You know, I mean, you think, you know, who refused to sign the treaty.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's another more deeper discussion.
Are they just lost in limbo?
Well, I don't think so. But you know, co-governance is a big political issue at the moment. You know, co-management of things. You know, Māori having a say. You know, it's been a really political hot topic, particularly around. Remember Judith Collins? You know, try to scare people by thinking that Māori gonna take over and things like that. You know, I mean, the treaty guarantees you know, a Māori voice. And the very most important decisions that we face as a country should always have a Māori voice. You know, it's an indigenous voice. It's a unique voice. And so the treaty guarantees that.
See, I failed history in high school. But what I got out of it, and you got to correct me if I'm wrong, but the treaty was just a way for the white man to, like, okay, we don't want a war. We don't want to continue this war. Because these are warring people. We're going to have casualties. We better do this treaty before things get worse, you know. I mean, we'll probably win, but we probably won't win if we're going to get hundreds of casualties. So we better save these hundreds of casualties and do this treaty. And I thought that, like, okay, this treaty was just a way to make things equal. So everyone that signs this treaty, this land is going to be, for people that be on this land will be equal.
Yep.
So that was a way for them to buy the land in a way where they can just trick them into buying the land, because now it's all equal.
I saw.
Is that right, or?
Well, I mean, so the concept of a treaty is basically two different organizations, people, groups coming together, and here's the plan for us to be able to do things together, right? And so what we notice in just before 1840, we notice, the movement of foreign people coming and moving and living in Aotearoa. So basically, the treaty guaranteed that Maori can be themselves. They can keep their own political, how they have, their ways of doing things, their connections with the whenua, the land, their language is very important. But what will happen is this treaty will allow, Europeans to come and live here, and also but live under sort of like the rules of the European, the British laws. So that was the concept of that. Obviously, it was ignored by the Crown, and as a result, Māori had massively lost their land. They lost what was important to them, and that's why we've got treaty claims happening at the moment. So that's sort of what happened in a nutshell. So you got all these New Zealand land wars. So I talked about the Taranaki land wars, for example, the Waikato land wars, for example, were atrocious. What's really cool, or what we've been seeing, I don't know if you've seen this in Hamilton, but some of the street names have been changed. So some of the street names used to be like generals who were in charge of some of these army that went against Māori. So you have street names that were named after these Pākehā generals. And so the Hamilton City Council just recently decided to change the name. Von Tempsky was the name of the street, to a Māori name that the iwi had approved. Yeah. And I think that's cool. It's flipping the script. It's recognising that some of the atrocious things that happened in our history are still reflected in the monuments that we have, some of the street names that we have. And so I like the idea of actually having those really difficult conversations and recognising, actually, hang on, we actually need to change this. So,
because I remember there was in the news, there was a whole lot of monuments getting vandalised.
Absolutely.
Around the country because of that. And it was just that awareness that happened. Even with the, what's the one down at the airport? The land thing? The protest? Ihumatao.
Yep.
See, that's still going, eh? Is it? They haven't resolved that yet,
I'm not sure what's happening there. I know there were sort of political discussions around the outcomes. I'm sure there were some outcomes there. I can't remember. I remember going onto that land. I think it was back in 2019, and just looking at the protests there. I know the organizer Panya Newton. Yep. Yeah. So and I think she's a champion, and I love people who fight for what they believe in. And also thinking about future generations, not for the now, but for our future grandchildren and mukapuna, future generations. What we do now. This is what I tend to think about. The actions that I do in terms of my work and my personal spaces, I always want to make sure that benefits future generations. That's really important.
I want to bring it back to Henderson.
Yep.
Because obviously I live here.
Yep.
Man, it's like, how can we? Because I'm concerned about Henderson Square or Henderson town, the township down there.
Okay.
It's been sucked dry.
Yep.
Like from Northwest and Linmore.
Yes.
I think that Linmore is Westfield still.
Linmore, I don't know. No, it's not. I don't think so.
Is Northwest Westfield?
No, I don't know.
Oh, okay. Because I know Westfield left Westerly.
Yep.
And I think Colliers are looking after it.
I can't
Colliers,
remember.
they're representing an Australian company that owns.
Oh yeah, most probably.
West City now, but man, it's gone down, man. It's gone down. When I know it's gone down? When Wickles leaves. When Wickles leaves or more? no one's reading books going into that mall.
Well, they do have a paper. They do have a paper
They do have
plus.
Paper Plus, but they came after.
Yeah, they do have a paper plus.
But you know who's left again
Who's that?
recently?
No.
Vodafone's left.
Oh, I'm 2 degrees anyway, so.
Exactly, but things.
Yeah.
But man,
Okay. Henderson.
so what's happening?
Cool. Well, we've got a plan for Henderson. There's a few confidential plans happening at the moment. I can't really go into them, but we recognise that we need housing in Henderson. Actually, we need people to actually live in the town square area. So, for example, I'm keen to see more townhouses, more apartments, because if you have people living here, they're going to be using the local services here. So, I guess we need to build. I think we need to build. There are some future developments will be happening in Henderson to make it a more easier way to navigate. Good safe walking spaces around the town square, but also having houses around that area. I think that's really important.
See, they got that big apartment building right up the corner of Swanson and Lincoln, the big one getting built.
Yep. And
So that's part of the plan, like to get more.
Yep. Even closer to
because that's part of the what do you call it? The what's the plan that?
Not the unitary plan.
The unitary plan, yeah.
Wow, you know about that? No one knows about that. I mean,
so the unitary plan, they want to get more housing in, so especially around public transport areas. So that's why you see a lot of apartment buildings built around the train stations.
Cool.
Like look at Glen Eden, they got that big one in front of there.
I mean,
which makes sense.
That makes sense. Building up and building around our public transport system makes sense. I mean, if you go to Japan, if you go to Hong Kong, I mean, people thinking, oh no, we can't live like that. We can't live in apartments. We can't live in townhouses. I've been to Japan and Hong Kong many times. That's a legitimate way of living. But just bearing in mind that if we do build townhouses and apartments, because obviously they have limited backyards, for example, we actually need to ensure we keep our green spaces, our playgrounds, and we actually need for those who live in those concentrated areas to be able to go and play, because play is really, really important. So when we build these houses, we need to make sure that we have the spaces to be able to accommodate, the play aspect, particularly for kids.
I had Lama Tony on. Do you know him? He's an architect. He's a Samoan architect.
Okay.
He lectures at Auckland Uni.
Oh, okay.
But he's working with Kiangaora. Was it Kiangaora? The housing.
Oh, yeah, Kaihautū Māori. Kaihautū, yeah.
The housing.
Yes.
So they're trying to get the Pacific culture in the design, or the Polynesian culture into these designs, where you can't really have, like, if you think about South Auckland, for instance, if you want to create a suburb in South Auckland, or not a suburb, like a what do you call new housing?
Yeah.
You can't really have a style like Hobsonville.
Yes.
Because for our people, we can't go up. We need a big rumpus room for meetings. We need we need one story, because you can't that kind of thing. Yeah. So the culture deserves a different kind of design for housing.
I totally get that. I've heard complaints about that.
Yeah.
Like, how do we design these Kaihautū homes that culturally responsive to Pacifica needs? So, for example, the intergenerational family. So Pacific, living with your parents and your grandparents, and you sort of all live in one house, and these new houses perhaps don't accommodate that, and so
exactly. So the conflict is land. For those houses to work, you need more land, but you can't really. See, the thing is now, like out west, like you see it everywhere now. People are selling their homes, and free townhouses take its place.
Yeah, I bought one of those townhouses. You're right, and that's what happened on the property that I currently live on. So the house was demolished about 2.5 years ago. They built 3 townhouses on that particular, and I bought one of those homes, and it's okay for me. But you're right. How do we have homes that are designed to accommodate the big families and intergenerational families as well that live together?
Yeah. So I think we got off track. So that was we were talking about that.
Henderson.
Henderson.
So I live in Henderson as well. My parents live in Te Atatu stuff. So I'm committed to making the city, the area that I live in, the best possible. So we'll have the city rail link will come through Henderson as well. So that's really cool, and it's really cool because the times on the trains to the city will almost be 20 minutes instead of 45, 50 minutes. You'll be able to take a direct train to South Auckland on the city rail link. So that's going to change everything, and that's going to be massive. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I guess with that happening in Henderson, the whole township of Henderson will no doubt have to change as well, and you'll have lots of housing. Do you know where the council chambers are? The Henderson Council Chambers. You've got housing happening right on, we built there as well. So we've got an exciting time. So you need to bring the people here. People need to be living here, and once you have that, then you have the services and the businesses will operate as a result. But I'm committed to making Henderson a really awesome place to live, to play and to work, because it has massive potential, and I love the West. I couldn't imagine living anywhere else in the city.
If you go downtown, you see a lot of it's hard to work in town. It's hard because of the parking, and a lot of businesses leave town. You only see corporate businesses in town, like accountants or lawyers, or because But if businesses are out of town in these suburbs, because there's free parking, that's the main thing for being there. It makes sense to intensify housing around town centre. Like, hopefully Henderson will become that in the future. Like, intensify the homes around more apartments. Like, even from the council building all the way to Bruce Mac.
Yes.
On the Henderson Valley side of the train station, like it's all industry. They got the movie studio there, eh? When they do
the film shooters. It's really interesting. You've got industry and housing on that particular street. So I find that quite fascinating. No doubt that street's going to be quite busy. I think it's cool. You got the high school there on that particular street as well. So lots of housing developments are happening. I think that's good. People are crying out for more housing opportunities, cheaper housing opportunities, more kainga order homes. Rents are going up.
With the one of my thoughts to make Henderson vibrant again.
Oh, cool! Please tell me.
Was entertainment.
Okay.
Entertainment, and I don't know, because you've been around the world. You know what entertainment looks like in malls.
Nope.
Have you been to Hawaii? Hawaii.
Yes.
You've been to the mall they got there, the Ala Moana Mall.
Yes.
Have you seen that bar they got upstairs?
I'll have to remember.
And they have those live performances every night.
Okay.
Like,
bring a bit of Hawaii to Honolulu. Honolulu to
entertainment, like live bands, live. Like, when I think about out west, and I think about when I think about Central Auckland, everywhere else in Auckland, the entertainment factor is real low out west. You know what I mean? The places to go to have a nice drink, have a meal, have some entertainment. Nice place to if you go, have you been to that new place in Morningside? In St. Luke's, they've got this new entertainment area there.
No,
just by the train tracks.
No, what is it called?
It just came out a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a new. There's a couple of bars there. There's a cafe.
Oh yeah.
It's like at the back of all these factories, and it just popped out of nowhere. You obviously got Ponsonby, those kind of places.
Yep.
Even South Auckland, you got some nice.
Which
some nice venues out there.
Yeah.
Just you got that nice. You got entertainment areas like.
Yeah. We've got the trusts, here, and the alcohol issues, with the trusts. So I think that, all our I guess bars based in West Auckland are sort of
lame.
Well, yeah. Well, we got the alcohol issue. Like, people are surprised when they move to West Auckland, this part of West Auckland. Like, oh, I can't buy alcohol in the supermarkets. And so and the bars are sort of have to have the trusts. So that's when the purchase of alcohol goes towards community groups and things like that. So people are usually surprised by that. But people have been saying for a long time, let's have a nice bar in Te Atatū Peninsula. Let's make this sort of like the West Ponsonby, and no, thank you. But no, people talk about that, particularly for that young sort of adult. They want something, here for entertainment purposes.
I mean, they've got Hobsonville. They've got. I think the trust reaches out there too. Eh? They've got.
I don't know. I don't know where it
There's a
finishes.
trust. I think Hobsonville's
Is it?
that limit,
Oh, okay.
and then I think it's Manager Pack and Save's the limit on the other side.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's it.
Yeah,
Do they have that in Mount Albert Pack and Save?
they
alcohol?
do. They do.
Oh,
It's a trust. It's a trust alcohol in the Pack and Save.
Is it?
Yeah, they sell.
What?
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense to have an alcohol store that's
Right.
allowed. I mean, outside.
Right.
That's the reason why they have an alcohol store in West City, outside outside the
Yeah.
countdown,
Yes.
because you're not allowed to be in.
Well,
countdown.
Well, what's interesting enough, so I remember going to the Kelston countdown. Outside, they had a table there, and those who protested against the trust shops because they wanted to, have alcohol in supermarkets. Supermarkets allowed them, because they want to sell alcohol because they obviously see it as a profit to them. But I like the idea of not having if you look at some parts of Auckland, they've got like alcohol shops everywhere, unregulated. On almost so many different corners, and I like the idea that there's so few of them, and that I can go to the you can go to supermarkets and not sort of be bombarded by alcohol and things like that. I think that's good for a community.
The supermarkets are crooks anyway. If they're doing a monopoly or whatever.
Well, I bought my Costco card, so we'll see what what deals I can get with Costco in a few months' time.
Oh yeah.
Have you got one yet? Have you got a Costco?
Nah, I don't. Because I want to get one.
Yeah.
I heard about those long lines. Was it a long line when you went?
Yes.
It was? How long did you have to wait?
90 minutes. And it was quite hot that day too.
90 minutes?
Yeah, and it was quite hot that day. Maybe that was a good day. 90 minutes was a good day.
I've been to Costco overseas.
Have you?
Pretty...
I haven't been overseas.
Haven't you?
No.
To Costco? Yeah, I went to one when I went to Hawaii. I went to the one over there.
Yeah. How was it?
Man, it was like paradise. Because I bought all these Levi's for like $30.
Oh, nice.
Jeans and
nice.
But they've got this food court, right? I don't know if they have it here, because they had like hot dogs for $1.50, and you have sauerkraut and mustard and cheese and all that, like big ass hot dogs for $1.50. Then you had like $2 Sal's pizza size pizzas.
Wow.
I mean, cheap ass.
Do you think they'll replicate that?
That's what I'm thinking.
Or they're a bit too stingy. I don't know.
Because I know they got one in Melbourne. I don't know what the prices are there in Melbourne.
But you would think that they try to replicate the same store regardless of what country it is, right? So I watched randomly. I like to watch random documentaries. I watched the Japanese Costco documentary on what they look like. So if you go in a Japanese Costco store, it looks the same as American stores, but bearing in mind that a Costco store looks very different from anything Japanese. It's very American, massive trolleys. I mean, the Japanese trolleys, man, they are like small as. So and then these Costco trolleys are massive.
Yeah, they're
massive. So that's very different from your typical Japanese
it's like
supermarket.
It's like shopping at Gilmore's, but it's accessible for everyone.
I haven't even been to Gilmore's. Yeah.
So it's buying in bulk. So that's what Costco is, eh? It's buying in bulk. So you buy you don't buy one toilet paper, you buy 20.
20.
For the price of 10.
Like COVID times,
sort of thing,
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, man, I don't know, man. Just living out west, man. I just sometimes I think it's entertainment we need around here. That's what I think. I think we need a music scene here. We need a live music scene here. We need opportunity for musicians to play here at establishments. Like, look at the Hangar Bar.
Yep.
Like, they've got the space.
Yep.
Why not have some live bands come there every
Did they not have
day?
live? I don't know. I haven't been for ages.
That's why, because there's no live bands there. That's why you haven't been. Like,
Oh,
you give opportunity for musicians, because there's plenty. There's the time I had dinner out in Awira.
Yep.
And the band there was from West Auckland. And I knew why they were there, because there's no one else to play. They can't play in West Auckland.
That's terrible.
I'm just saying off the top of my head, but I think entertainment is the key to have a vibrant town.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, where do I go for entertainment purposes? Like, I love going to, when they have big conferences, like concerts at Spark Arena. I try to go as many as I can there.
Spark Arena's in town.
Yeah, exactly. Thinking of where do I actually go? Like, I don't. In terms of, I most of the theaters in the town, but no. Te Pou, which is the Māori theatre group in Corbins. They have some theatre there. But you know what? Actually, I probably mostly go to the city for my entertainment.
Exactly, and that's where people go for the entertainment out west, because there's nothing out here. And I think that needs to change. People need to. If people are gonna be here, people need to be entertained here too.
Yeah,
like nice place to have a beer or have something to eat and talk to other people. Because one of my concepts on a bar is like, I've said this so many times on the podcast. If people are gonna listen to this, fuck, he's saying it again.
That's all right.
There needs to be seats at the bar. You've been around the world. If you go to any bar around the world, what do you see at the bar?
I'm trying to think.
Oh, you go to America.
Yep.
Every bar you go to in America, there's seats at the bar.
On TV, they've got seats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think. Yes.
But do you know what happens when you have seats at the bar?
People buy drinks, they sit down and buy.
Yeah, but it means you can go by yourself to have a beer at the bar.
Okay.
And talk to the bartender, because that's the culture when you go to a bar. It's meeting people and talking to people and being sociable.
Right.
When you go to a bar, you go, if say you're coming home from work, you just, I just need a beer because I'm stressed. Before I go home, stop at the bar. You go by yourself. You can sit at the bar. You talk to the bartender. The guy next to you, and the guy next to you might be sitting there. You talk and have one beer and go home. Like, you don't have that here, because you have an empty bar. Bartenders are talking to no one. You have all these tables outside the bar. Like, you're gonna go for group. You can't really go to a bar and drink by yourself because you've got no one to talk to, because you're away from the bar. You're not talking to the bartender, because that's the culture of a bar, I reckon. It's like the same thing with a barber shop. Like, you sit down in the barber shop, you talk to the barber. He's cutting your hair, you're having a conversation. That's the bartender. The barber is the bartender. You have that same relationship at the bar.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah,
that's good to know.
I think that's lost in Auckland. Like, you see that there's a lot of bars in Auckland with no seats at the bar, and I think that whole thing is lost now. So I think I know why it's happened, because it's like a convenience thing. Like, why are you sitting at a bar when you're in the way of me getting paid? Serving the customer. That's why I don't want you at the bar, because you're in the way. But that's not the point.
I've never thought about it. I've never thought about that. That's really interesting.
But I'm just saying that's just what I've noticed.
Surely there must be some New Zealand bars, Auckland. But I'm just trying to think in my head. It's been a while. I tend to frequent libraries more than the bars when I think about it.
But it's more about the meeting the community.
Right.
That's what it's all about. I mean, in West Auckland, there's nowhere to go to meet people in your community. There's no hub. And I know alcohol is a bad name. People say, oh man, drunk people, you need more security. You need, they don't want to deal with that kind of trouble.
Yeah.
I think that just, that overtakes what's the essence of coming together as a community. And, I think the entertainment factor is what's missing to bring the community together.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't have to be drinking. It can be like a concert or, live music, or just a place where people can converge.
I like that. A place where friends can come together. Just thinking about some of the, if I want to go out for friends, mainly for me in West Auckland, it would be just going to a restaurant. And so I guess people do, a restaurant to catch up with friends. But you're thinking about like other opportunities where, maybe music and alcohol and things like that.
Yeah. But it doesn't have to be alcohol.
Yeah.
Just be a place where people can converge and just meet other people. Have that opportunity to meet other people. Not because going as a group, you're not meeting anyone. You're just seeing the group. And I think that's what these bars are doing. People go in groups to these bars, and you see it. You walk into a bar, you want to hang out. You see all these groups just sticking together. There's no the bar is supposed to be the place that allows you to have a seat, have a chat to the bartender, have a chat to the person next to you. How's your day? What's going on? Like, blah, blah, blah. And then next week you might sit down, oh, I saw you last week. Oh, blah, blah, blah. How was it going? You have a conversation with the bartender. You know the bartender. You have that. The bartender now has a has a clientele that he knows because he knows. Oh, hey George, how was your day? How did you have a good review of your boss last week? That kind of stuff. The same things you have with the barbershop. Everyone goes to the barbershop. They have that conversation. Everybody. It's that thing that I think that's missing from the bar scene anywhere in Auckland.
I've never thought about it that way, but I love having conversations with the barber. They're just they're great. They're the best conversation people are the barbers. And I really appreciate them. So, but the whole bar thing, new concept for me. I just didn't even think it like that. I mean,
well, when you go to Boston and you go to a bar, you'll see the difference.
Yeah.
You see everybody there. You see the whole scene.
I'm gonna go to a couple of bars and I'll try that. I'll be going by myself to Boston, so I'll have to try that out. I'll try that out and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of getting people together.
Yeah.
It's a. Yeah, I would love to have that in my where I live.
In your backyard.
In my backyard,
Okay. Something to ponder. How council can help contribute to that. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I don't think the chances will be.
But you need a dedicated group of people who'd be keen to see that. So I guess if you can get yourself, if you get others, usually things happen when you got a collection of group of people who come together and actually push for what they want. And to make it happen.
Incentives too. Incentives if you want people to come to a place if you want a place to be if you want people to come into a place, they need to have incentive to come. So I think the research needs to be around what the young people need these days, what they're looking for, what can we give them to do something other than, what they do normally. Like, I know in America, when I think about America, it's a capitalist country. So everywhere you turn, there's a chance to spend your money. Because that's what they are, And we don't want to go that far, but I don't know, sort of. Yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about Henderson, right now?
Well,
and what it needs.
I mean, I chose to buy my house here, and I made that massive decision. So it's who I am. Henderson is part of me, and I'm part of Henderson. So I want to see it to be a thriving place. I want people to move here. I want people to enjoy their lives here. I want people to work here. I want people to play here. I want people to spend their time in this part. It's got a massive history here in Henderson, and it's got heaps of potential. And I want to see it happen. We've got good schools here. We've got Unitech here. I want to see tertiary, I want to see that area develop too, because I think West Auckland deserves to have a really proud polytech or university. We talk about how, for example, a lot of the kids young people here have to sort of get to the city, to the universities, because now, we've got MIT out in South Auckland, we've got a AUT campus, an Auckland University campus out South Auckland, but West tends to miss out a little bit more like that. So I really want to see just the opportunities here in West Auckland. That's the opportunities, and I think we've got the potential to do that.
Sure, brother. So, man, we appreciate you coming on the podcast, brother.
Yeah.
And, man, I hope you have a good trip to Boston.
Yeah.
And catch some Celtics games and some New England games.
Yeah.
Because you'll be there during NFL season, so.
Yep.
And you'll probably be there during Super Bowl season. When Super Bowl is all around.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
I think it's February. Are you back in February or?
Back in April. April. I gotta check. I don't even know if the NBA season's around that time, but I have to.
Yeah, no, they're around.
Yeah.
Oh, NFL and NBA will be on.
Yeah. Okay. No, cool. No, awesome. No, whaftai lava mole whanua. Thank you for the opportunity. That's
Thanks,
great.
Will.
Thank you, bro.
Cheers.
Ngā mihi. Oh, thank you, bro. Oh,
How was that?
that was good. I mean.